Recording in progress.
We can call this meeting to order at 6:03. Mrs. Ball.
Councilmember Higgs has been requested to be excused from the meeting, correct, Council President?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Love? Here. Councilmember McCarthy? Here. Councilmember Scott? Here. Mayor Porter?
Here.
Councilmember Wright?
Here.
Council President Raynor?
Here. Okay. Presentation. Linda Perry? Yes, ma'am. All right. I'm ready for you.
All right. Let's see here. Looks like that's good. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor Porter.
Good evening.
My name is Bill Skavinsky. I'm a planner with the Prince George's County Planning Department in the Community Planning Division. I'm the project manager for the Central Avenue Blue and Silver Line sector plan and sectional map amendment. I'm joined here tonight by Ms. Elena Perry, Deputy Project Manager. Also, to my rear left, I have our project facilitator, Mr. Kier McCune. Also have two core team members, Ms. Ramirez Blust and Mr. Arsenal. So this evening, we're going to give you a briefing on where we're at with the Central Avenue Blue Line Sector Plan. And we're gonna cover kind of some high-level items to kind of bring you up to speed on what we've done and where we're at and ultimately where we're going over the next few months leading up to plan adoption. So if you could flip to slide number 2. Just going to provide a quick summary of the agenda for this evening. So we're going to start off with a sector plan overview firstly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Elena, who's going to take us through a summary of the public participation program that ran for about 9 months. Then we're going to talk about some of the major challenges and key recommendations, but of course that will not cover all of them, just some of the kind of key higher level items that we have in the plan thus far. Then we're going to talk about some of the visions for the sector plan and the metro station focus areas. And then that will lead us into a discussion on some of the proposed zoning and the draft future land use map. And then we'll wrap it up with a quick overview of the project schedule and some Q&A. Okay. So moving on to slide 3 and then slide number 4, we're going to do a sector plan overview. So you should have the slide with the county map as well as the sector plan boundary map. So this sector plan area is approximately 4,020 acres. And the sector plan boundary is of course between the eastern side, boundary line of District of Columbia. It runs through to I-695, so it's a completely inner beltway sector plan and is bisected by Maryland 214 or Central Avenue, as well as the blue and silver metro lines. This plan does fall within planning areas 72, 75A, and 75B. And we do have three council districts involved, those being council districts 5, 6, and 7. Okay, next slide is we're going to do a more in-depth overview of the sector plan area. So here we have the sector plan and its key locations. So those key locations are, of course, City of Seat Pleasant, highlighted in the yellow. We do have a portion of the town of Capitol Heights, as shown in the orange color. And then we have the Capitol Heights, Addison Road, Seat Pleasant, and Morgan Boulevard metro stations, which are also inside of what we call the local transit centers. And of course, to the north of Morgan Boulevard, we have what's now called the Commander's Field, the football stadium. Any questions so far? So now we're going to turn it over to Elena. She's going to take us through the public participation program summary.
Right. Yeah, so turning to the next slide. So during the implementation of the public participation program, our team attended, passed out and gathered information, and answered and asked questions at events held throughout the plan area, including the Addison Road walking tour last spring, one of the Seat Pleasant First Friday events last fall, and most recently the Seat Pleasant placemaking event earlier this year. We also hosted 3 office hour events at the 3 community centers, including the Seat Pleasant Activity Center, and 3 pop-up events at the 3 metro stations, including the combined pop-up event with the Capitol Market at the Addison Road Seat Pleasant Station last fall, to share existing conditions information and find out what residents liked and disliked about the area. So in addition to the in-person events, we also had online engagement activities to gather even more information. And from this, we started drafting initial items, including the vision statements, goals, and urban design visualizations. We presented and collected feedback of those drafts at the March open house events we hosted at the Sports and Learning Complex. And I know at least one of you, I believe, was in attendance there, which was very much appreciated. So the next slide shows some of the key highlights from the community input from all those activities and events that I mentioned. So from the SWOT exercise, it was noted the need for better connectivity throughout the plan area and economic growth. And then for the word cloud activity, you can see the kind of 3 visionary words that users submitted the most for those word clouds for each of the metro stations, and safe is in all 3. And overall, during the meetings and events, we consistently heard about the need for a grocery store or more fresh food access, new business and retail options, and recreation activities, especially for youth and seniors. And from the open house, we understood that most attendees were in favor of adding more density around the metro stations to add activity and bring other amenities and opportunities to the area. So if you turn to the next slide. So each sector plan is made up of 8 plan elements: land use, economic prosperity, transportation and mobility, natural environment, housing and neighborhoods, community, heritage, culture and design, healthy communities, and public facilities. The draft plan includes a number of policies and strategies for each element and makes cross-references to supporting ideas. The plan will also include an implementation table for who would be responsible and identify possible funding sources. So breaking down the plan into these elements helps to organize the complex factors and considerations that affect and are affected by growth and development, and there's a lot of interaction between these elements. So the next slide. So the last time that we met with you all was October of 2023. So I wanted to cover kind of element by element what we heard from you all, so, and how we are addressing that in the plan, so we can address what we heard from the last meeting, from the last time we all met with you, and make sure that we heard you and we've tried to address that in the plan. So for land use, We understand that a priority is developing underutilized parking lots. So we have some strategies about bringing retail frontage along the main streets and putting parking in the back to enhance the streetscape environment, and with placemaking in the short term until redevelopment occurs. We also heard that you want to see multi-story buildings with storefront retail along Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. And this area is called out as the neighborhood retail focus area in the draft plan that we'll actually discuss on a later slide. The draft plan also includes strategies to support vacant lot cleanup and development into, for example, missing middle housing or open space. For economic prosperity, we understand that coordination with neighboring municipalities and community associations to push forward the common goals is a priority, and the draft plan suggests formation of a plan oversight committee or something similar to promote plan implementation. There are policies and strategies focused on supporting and encouraging entrepreneurship, small businesses, and workforce development opportunities. And we also heard a desire for fine dining and entertainment. So the draft plan includes strategies for revitalization of commercial corridors to support these types of uses, and of course, the small business growth and encouraging the use of underutilized buildings and land. For transportation and mobility, so working closely with the team that is working on the new county master plan of transportation, our team has looked at Maryland 214 Central Avenue and proposes a road diet for the majority and improvements for pedestrian infrastructure at the intersections. The draft plan also includes upgrades to existing bus stops and recommends adjusting bus schedules.
Can I ask, now you going to wait for the ask questions, or can we ask, because this is pertinent to me when you talk about the crossing 214. We had discussions years ago about some type of esplanade, okay, to move pedestrians from one side of the street to the other, okay? There was a study done that said that they didn't find that that was feasible and problematic. We've had several fatalities, okay, in the crossing of that street over the years. So, to me, that dictates that the study didn't necessarily, wasn't all cracked up to be a reference to pedestrian traffic trying to get from one side of the street to the other side of the street. That's essential, okay? Metro is going to be used. People have to get across the street to use the Metro. That's something that should be, we would like to take advantage of. Any way of getting that, those types of things are an enhancement in the DC area, okay? As well as other cities that have need that type of thing, especially when you have a walking group of people that walk and try to get transportation. So I think that's essential. So I wanted to address that while we were on that point, because that's something that we seem to kind of shadow. I know we want to have economic development on both sides, okay, but we want to make sure people can get from one side of the street to the other.
Yep, understood.
Without,
Yes.
okay.
Corey over here has worked very hard on the transportation chapter with our transportation planning staff. So yes, we are very much aware of the issues, and we think we've at least drafted some recommendations to get us, help people to cross safely. So, yeah. So on the next slide. So for natural environment, the plan acknowledges the importance of Cabin Branch Stream and recommends renaturalizing the stream by removing the channelization and reconnecting it with its floodplain. For housing and neighborhoods, we heard about the desire to increase home ownership, which is addressed in the Housing and Neighborhoods chapter through the promotion of county and state resources and educational courses. For community heritage, culture, and design, so carrying through a theme for the municipality corridor and each local transit center is identified in the draft plan to be incorporated into gateway elements, wayfinding, public art, and other placemaking components, as well as recreation features. There is a question about the old mansion behind the police station that we believe used to be the old Palmer residence, a family that led to the development of this area. The draft plan recommends additional research and on-site interpretive signage. The Watkins Hardware Store and Old Fire Station are two key sites for potential adaptive reuse as community gathering locations or museum or gallery spaces or cultural center or something similar. For public facilities, we heard about the need for recreation facilities and amenities for youth, and the draft plan recommends building on the county youth sports initiative and designating teen spaces. There is a question about the MNCPPC property by the activity center in the school. And the draft plan recommends adding an intergenerational and accessible community garden for all ages, tying to excuse me, some of the healthy community recommendations. For the city-owned excuse me, properties near the Pepco power station along Martin Luther King Jr. Highway, the draft plan recommends placemaking gateway elements and creating a park that can be a destination along the WB&A Trail extension. And I will turn it back to Bill.
All right. Thank you, Elena. Now, you can go ahead and skip slide number 12. So now we're going to cover some of those major challenges and what we're calling now proposed recommendations in order to address them in the plan. Again, these are just a sampling that the team provided as some of their top challenges and recommendations that they've identified in drafting the plan. So this kind of goes from left to right as far as left being major challenges, on the right, the proposed recommendations. And they're going to go kind of in an order of the elements that Elena described to everyone just earlier. So for land use major challenges, you know, the plan area is largely low density. It's single-family housing for the most part. And a challenge for economic prosperity, well, excuse me, let me go back to land use. And that there's also a need for land consolidation in order to facilitate larger scale redevelopment projects, especially around the metro stations. Now for some major challenges that apply to economic prosperity, of course we have market fluctuations, you know, especially during and post-COVID, you know, the market's changed quite a bit, you know, for areas of such as retail, housing, commercial space, you know, that are affecting project feasibility and timing. So some of the proposed recommendations to address those land use challenges are, of course, increasing density, you know, going to higher density or transit-oriented development in and around the metro stations or inside the local transit centers, and to capitalize on that vacant land near the metro stations to encourage transit-oriented development and create walkable, vibrant neighborhoods. We'd also like to create walkable shopping and dining destinations, especially in areas such as the Martin Luther King Jr. Highway focus area that we'll talk about here in a little bit more in depth. And some of the economic prosperity recommendations are, you know, revitalization. We want to revitalize the existing retail spaces into more mixed-use developments, community facilities, or incubator spaces for small businesses. We'd also like to promote local entrepreneurship, as well as small and local minority-owned businesses and business development. And we want to strengthen and support workforce development initiatives. Next page, next slide. My PowerPoint has decided to catch up. There we go. Now we're going to talk about some major challenges and the proposed recommendations for transportation and mobility and natural environment elements. So for the transportation mobility major challenges, we identified a weak bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure with poor connections for non-motorized modes of transportation. Also identified that there are 2 of the county's high crash corridors in the area, specifically along Maryland 214. And there is a need for traffic calming and roadway redesigns to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians. Some of the major challenges for the natural environment include climate change, of course. So within the plant area, there are channelized streams, impervious surfaces. There's been removal of forest and tree canopy and development in floodplains. well as various types of infrastructure and ecosystems more vulnerable to the unpredictable timing and scale of climate-related disasters. And there are also steep slopes that make things difficult. You know, it's difficult to work with this type of soils, it's problematic for construction, and could make new development difficult.
Let me go with that. We know that we have, most of our cities, okay, were built on a swamp kind of arrangement here, okay? So we know it's gonna be difficult, but with technology, the use of technology and how they can abate things. I sit on the local advisory committee for the Chesapeake Bay, so we deal with the EPA and everything else that they're dealing with reference to trying to abate some of these problems they have. We're now experiencing problems with sinkholes and things of that particular nature. So we know there's some things that have to be done or captured as you're doing your structurally going under development. We know it exists. But we know technologies exist also to abate some of these problems, okay, that we're having, to allow us to be able to do things along this corridor that we haven't, you know, been able to see. Okay, at one time, the corridor was a whole lot more thriving. Several years ago, we had car dealerships and other things to make it a more viable corridor. You know, drive-in theater and the like. You know, if you go back at the historical value of 214. So again, the concern is, okay, when we talk about this, because people need to understand what an impervious surface is, okay, or how you do these things. They may not be, the general citizen can't connect to that kind of arrangement. So we have to really go into a elaborate detail to really explain that so they fully understand it as they're sort of putting things together so they can know what they're looking at, okay, and what we're looking at, what we can actually have in the community, okay. I've been able to see communities from New York, Pennsylvania, all the way down, how they took these arrangements and with new improvements, were able to structurally put together designs to enhance corridors. So I'm simply saying, so that we have a full understanding of what's actually going on so that when we put together projects, we can know what we're gonna get and how quickly we can get them.
Yeah, I'm enjoying your presentation. This is sort of like up my alley. There are two issues I just want you to think about. When you talk about transit-oriented development, which is a thing that I do support, which means economic and development and retail around metro stations, instead of just, when you step out of the metro station, you're going into a parking lot. You're actually going into something. What I would not like is New Carrollton. You know, once upon a time, going to the New Carrollton station was a pleasant experience. You could get on your bus, whether on the east side, or go to your car and go about your business. Now it looks like downtown Bethesda. We don't want that. What we want is development that is coherent in terms of the type of activity that we want. We don't want just all of these buildings to just pop up at you the minute you step out of the metro station there. And that's on the east side of New Carrollton. Number two, you really piqued my interest when you said something in reference to bicycle lanes on Central Avenue. Now, in the Douglas Commonwealth, you have Alabama Avenue, and the Bowser administration is proposing building bicycle lanes on Alabama Avenue, which, you know, I don't live there, but I think that's just a bad idea. Alabama Avenue is too narrow as it is. It's too busy as it is. Just like Central Avenue is. Why do you need to put a bicycle lane there? I don't believe you have to have a bicycle lane in every major thoroughfare. Not major thoroughfare. It just doesn't work out. I yield.
Oh, I just wanted Councilman Wright to speak for himself when he says we don't want.
Right, because economic development is key, okay, for us. If we were to get things going like they do have in an area like New Carrollton, to being about jobs, other opportunities, that's what we need, okay, in this area. We run out of the district, and so forth. Everything, anytime there's a piece of land that's available in the district, there's a pop-up, anywhere from 4 to 5 stories. So they can't go wide, they go high, okay? For too long, we've looked at a situation whereby, we can have the appropriate development along this corridor, along either of the corridors. That's the only way we're gonna grow, okay? So I understand, and perhaps Mr. Councilmember Wright's angst for wanting to have that bedroom effect, but we need to develop, and we need it now, okay? And we have been in search of it for a long, long time. That's why we're have a food desert and everything else and so forth. So we're looking for some things to actually pop off and take place here. That's my opinion.
And I can say that everything going into this plan has really kind of been a culmination of all of our kind of background research and prior reports and studies that have been done over the past, 15 years or so. We conducted with the assistance of a consultant, a new market study that really looked at things and how they apply today in this kind of post-COVID world. And then, of course, a fairly rigorous public participation program and community input. So all of that kind of went into kind of how we're shaping this vision, and how we're proposing some of the urban design visualizations that we'll look at here in just a few minutes.
Sure.
So, yeah. All right, so we were on slide 14. We had just gone through the major challenges for transportation and mobility and natural environment. So for the proposed recommendations for transportation and mobility, we have some recommendations like traffic calming on key roads, which does include road diet on Central Avenue and complete streets redesign, developing a connected bike and pedestrian network with trails and sidewalks. And we'd also like to implement safe routes to school with traffic calming, crosswalk signage, and improved lighting. Some of our proposed recommendations for natural environment include prioritizing investments in water quality and stormwater infrastructure projects, as well as tree planting and maintenance projects in the area to help improve equity and environmental justice. Also looking to secure conservation easements or acquire properties that contain at least portions of streams to improve stewardship and facilitate the conservation, repair, and restoration of natural areas. And lastly, concentrate development in those local transit centers to prioritize redevelopment of existing developed sites and limiting greenfield development. On the next slide, we have our housing and neighborhood, and our community heritage, culture, and design elements. So for the major challenges for housing and neighborhoods, there's an insufficient housing inventory with limited new construction and limited diversity of housing types. And there's a lack of housing options at various price points, including affordable and workforce housing. Some major challenges for community heritage, culture, and design include the need for a detailed study of past design, public spaces, and cultural assets to preserve the area's uniqueness as development grows. So we are looking at, area's history and identity and trying to kind of reimagine that in today's world. There's also a need to address dumping and littering in corridors, especially in vacant lots. And we'd like to try to tackle that through some prevention techniques and a cultural shift in the community. For the proposed recommendations for housing and neighborhood, that includes developing diverse and affordable housing types in and around the local transit centers to improve access to services and transit. We'd like to prioritize mixed income communities through affordable housing incentives as well as grants. And we'd also like to construct missing middle housing to serve as kind of that transition area between higher density development and the existing neighborhoods, as well as fill in some of the vacant lots.
Excuse me, sir, what do you define missing middle transitions?
Typically, in the case of this plan, we're looking at more type of like attached dwellings. So it could be townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes. So more lower height, somewhat, medium density type of dwellings that will kind of transition from that higher density. So 7, 8 story, stepping down to like a 4, 5, 6 story, and then missing middle would kind of be that transition between the higher density and the existing single-family housing neighborhoods.
As opposed to single-family homes?
They certainly could be a part, but we're looking at more attached as,
Okay.
style homes that, kind of serve as that transition barrier between the transit-oriented areas and the existing neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
And then the proposed recommendations for community heritage, culture, and design include celebrate history and culture through placemaking, branding, as well as adaptive reuse and urban design techniques. And also like to increase social ties and public safety using crime prevention through environmental design principles, space activation, and social participation. And then the next slide, which is our last one for major challenges and our proposed recommendations. On the left, we have healthy communities and public facilities. So some major challenges identified in healthy communities. As just previously mentioned, there are a few healthy food retailers. There are no large grocery stores in the plan area. The current population and existing stores in the other plan area make it difficult to attract a supermarket or some type of national grocery store within the plan area. Another challenge for healthy communities is according to assessing Prince George's County healthcare and social needs and a 10-plus year investment strategy that was published in October of 2023. More than $1.3 billion in investment is needed to close the healthcare gap in inner Beltway communities.
That's determined by, give me an idea of the determination for that.
That I don't know. Let me see if my colleague who wrote the chapter may have some more information on that.
Mayor Porter, Linda Ramirez Blessed. That is, the county health department did a study of the healthcare needs and did an analysis to see what would be necessary to help bridge the gap to provide the needs to the community as is needed. So that's the county's health department.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to share
Yeah,
a link
yeah,
to
I
the
need
report.
Right, okay, thank you.
Now moving on to some of the major challenges for public facilities. Of course, addressing crime is an issue. And with addressing crime in 2021 through 2022 with community policing, space activation, and that crime prevention through environmental design. There's, of course, a challenge for funding for projects, especially for infrastructure and to support neighborhood growth. And there's also an issue with the need for creating more parks and recreation facilities for youth and seniors. So some of our proposed recommendations for healthy communities are to transform the plan area into what we're calling a food oasis, comprised of a network of sites producing and processing and distributing healthy, affordable, and sustainably grown food. We'd like to prioritize healthcare infrastructure investment in inner Beltway communities, so particularly this plan area. And we'd like to enhance the sidewalk, trail, and bicycle network to connect all neighborhoods to community amenities, including healthy food retailers and healthcare providers. The proposed recommendations for public facilities include to create, expand, and upgrade parks and recreation areas by assessing needs, preserving resources, and acquiring land to maintain accessible public spaces. And lastly, we'd like to invest in public facilities to boost economic development, job growth, neighborhood strength, and resilience.
Sir,
Yes.
food oasis. These terms, they come to communities of color, and they talk about food oasis, they talk about farmers markets and how wonderful farmers markets are, and I like farmers markets too. But what I really would like is a full-service grocery store. And I find it interesting that a particular supermarket that the mayor is familiar with, they're building a brand-new facility in South Bowie. And, but what they do is they justify that by saying, well, they have the income levels there. Well, we have some people with some income in this area too. So, I just want to put a pin on your food oasis, not to just have farmers markets, which are wonderful, but also we really need a full-service grocery store in this area. I yield.
And, yeah, we're fully aware of that. It's been one of the top concerns that we've heard from the community. It's the lack of, major grocery retailer. So, yeah, that's definitely a big part of what's going into this plan. And of course, it's,
So what would you say is the biggest barrier? I know we have things surrounding our community, but in Bowie alone, you can go to one intersection and there are 3 grocery stores. So I don't think it's about the density of the grocery stores. What are the other barriers and how can we address them?
it's a great question. As far as, why some groceries pulled out in the past, we've heard, we haven't heard a definitive answer as to why the prior grocery store pulled out, but we've heard certain things along the lines of perhaps some crime issues is one reason. And of course, economics. I mean, I don't know kind of how things were, for their books and why they decided to pull out. But I think one major reason is
Well, as I
perhaps
say,
crime issues.
it has an aspect of the crime issue. I'm sorry, finish it.
Okay, so how do we bring those folks to the table to have those conversations? Because without a grocery store, like, this whole plan is just kind of like, what's the point? It's like, oh, we came out and we hear you guys saying you want a grocery store, but that's not what we're gonna do, and we're gonna move forward with this. People need to eat to live. Building housing does nothing if I don't have somewhere to eat.
Yeah, and we're looking at various types of incentive programs to hopefully attract some type of national grocer to the area, whether it be something smaller footprint, mid-sized footprint, but it's really about creating incentives to attract those chains into the area.
Now, are you guys able to facilitate those types of conversations between us and the folks that are saying no? Like, is that something you could do, like, where we can have those conversations, where we can meet with them? Like, are you guys able to facilitate that?
So I think that would be the Economic Development Corporation that would be able to help facilitate that
Okay.
discussion.
Well,
Hi, I'm Kier McCune. I'm the facilitator for the project and supervisor for the Community Planning Division. The goal for the planners here is to provide you with all the tools necessary to make sure that this area is as attractive to a retailer as possible. The people who actually get to talk and get the attention of those retailers are going to be like your county executive. It's going to be the county council members. It'll be you as well to get those folks to the table. We have the Economic Development Corporation that's also, they go to their conventions all the time and try to woo in different types of retailers. That's part of their job. Our job is to make sure that once they get their attention, they're like, wow, yeah, how do we miss this gem? They have, they give us tax incentives, and one of the things that is very challenging for any grocery retailer. It's just that the margins are so slim for a grocery store. So I hate to say it, but it's almost like we have to overcompensate here in terms of making sure that we have really high density. You know, I've lived in this area for almost 30 years, and I used to shop at the grocery store over here. And I just remember how, for me, and this is me speaking as a resident, how poorly managed it was, and I had options. And so why would I shop at this place if I felt like they weren't giving me the best service that I deserved? So I decided to go other places to shop. And unfortunately, I think a lot of my neighbors felt the same way. Now that we're in a position where we're trying to transform and reinvent ourselves, we have an opportunity now with having a plan that says this is our vision for the future, and actually putting that stuff into fruition and start to get some more density, start to see some change in the area. That, in addition to the policies and strategies that they're going to put in this plan to incentivize that type of growth, will be very helpful. But long story short, the answer to your question is who gets into the table. It's not us, but we will have in the plan the strategies of and who will be responsible for those things. So it's going to be you, ma'am, as well. Is going to be responsible for that, and the council and the mayor are going to be responsible for that as well.
So if we're able to bring developers to you, okay, as far as this plan is concerned, and bring to the table, we're trying to look at the steps that are necessary for us to actually do that now. Our area is going through a rapid change.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we know what people may say, okay, but you have to, there comes a time when that all has to go by the wayside, and you have to think about what it is. The think tank comes in, how we're going to get this to actually happen in this community. We haven't had any major development in this community, okay, for the most part, in over 25 years, okay. When you look around the surrounding areas, they're now starting to really develop, okay. Oftentimes, the funding sources that come to, quote-unquote, these areas, from the federal standpoint, those monies are allocated because of what's happening here, but the monies go elsewhere because of whatever the mindset is. Well, we're kind of tired of that in the Inner Beltway communities. That's why we're trying to build, okay, at least over the last few weeks, we've talked with the surrounding communities, let's say Fremont Heights, Capitol Heights, that we're communicating now more effectively to build a consortium, okay, a coalition, okay, to move forward aggressively, okay, to see things actually take place here, okay? So of course, we like this, we want this, but we want to know all the steps that are necessary to make this happen. And when we bring things to the table, if we are able to do that and bring the developers, I had some developers in that are interested in doing development here in the city, okay, in the surrounding areas. We want to let these sector plans actually go to work, and it's not just a detail arrangement, but really see it come to fruition. We've waited a long time.
You've waited far too long, Mr. Mayor.
Correct.
Far too long. And I will say this for the project team. When we drafted the boundaries for the plan, there's a little bit of pushback in terms of maybe we should include some additional areas, but they were really adamant that Sea Pleasant, Capitol Heights, had really been left out for a very long time. And we know what happens. We know what's been happening and how the community's been used and not necessarily reaping the benefits of what the demographics here have gotten other people.
So we're not jumping on you, let's just say this.
I know that, but
what
we're
doing is we're trying to say,
keenly
yeah,
aware, we're
okay.
keenly aware of that.
Okay.
And we're making sure that the strategy specifically address those issues and it's tailored towards your community.
I will say, I know, Councilmember Wright, you reacted to the word food oasis, and Linda's been working very hard on the Healthy Communities chapter and really having the full service grocery, but also having community gardens and other, things around that can support, like, locally having fresh and healthy food. So she's been working really hard on that chapter, and it's very robust and very, forward-thinking, so, yeah.
Councilwoman,
do you all have a strategy to help us with loss prevention? Because in my attempts and talking to the larger stores, the nicer stores, that's the first thing they say. I cannot afford to move there because of loss prevention. But now your little small carryouts, they pop up all over the place. We don't need those. And I'm not trying to hurt nobody's feelings in here, but we need, as Mr. Wright says, Councilmember Wright says, a full service store, not a little, you know what I'm saying? we talking about, and it's been overlooked for so long. So as you bring folks in, I want them able to say something about how we're gonna combat that. Because everybody up here, well, I'm gonna speak for me. I would love to see a full-service grocery store where we get wholesome food, like a Whole Foods, just throwing one out there. So I want y'all's strategy to include what can we do for loss prevention.
And one last thing.
I yield the floor.
Good.
I can give you a clear example. If you go to Riverdale Park, okay? Okay, we once had a developer in here that talked about the aspects of actually doing some development here some years ago. But we have the land mass that can facilitate something like that if you look at how it's structured. Also stemming over, again, if you have that crossover, to the metro area and go into a main thoroughfare. So we have that now. There was a time period, again, when we had a contaminant on a portion of it, but we have worked very fervently to identify that in Brown Fair area, to have that dealt with. Okay, at least we're dealing with it. There's conversations at the table with reference to that. So we'd like you to look at that from that standpoint, because there are other communities where they had a bit of a problem, okay? Route 1, back over to a waterway process in the back, train station area and so forth. They took over part of the Army Reserve arrangement, placed in a beautiful facility, okay, in that area. And it's working great, okay? This area is, to me, deserves that, okay? We see what's actually being manifested in the Washington, D.C. area, down the East Capitol Corridor, okay, as it's developing. It's just, it's time. And I believe that it's doable.
And just to kind of add to what Elena and Kiev said in regards to the question from Councilmember McCarthy, as far as kind of who's going to bring it all to the table, who's going to kind of be the loud voice to make things happen. And as Elena mentioned earlier, something that we would like, we're proposing in the plan is something to the effect of some type of plan oversight committee or business roundtable of sorts that will pull together folks as yourself, local business owners, and local community leaders to kind of be that loud voice to say, hey, this is our priority, or this is our list of priorities. This is what we'd like to start tackling now. This is what we need to do using the plan as a guide. These are the agencies we need to talk to help coordinate all of this. So, we certainly don't want this to be a plan that just sits on a shelf and doesn't get used in one way or the other. We want this to serve as kind of a guide to help guide, the community, as well as when things come in for review on the county side of things. So it's really bringing everybody to the table to make things happen. And, we can only do so much. It's, forming a coalition of sorts, oversight, committee to be that loud voice to bring it all together.
Exactly. If you can point me in the right direction, I can make it happen, right? I just need to get in front of the right people to have those hard and tough conversations. Because we're talking amongst ourselves, right? The neighbors are talking to us, the council members are talking to each other, we're talking to the mayor, the staff. We all know that we need a grocery store, right? But we need to talk to the grocers about it. And I think also, and this is something that we can do as a council, we would need to put together some type of campaign to the residents to remind them to shop at the store when the store comes. Because we did have a grocer come. It was a small grocer, but they did not last, and it wasn't because of theft. It was because people weren't shopping there. They weren't making enough money, right? Because people, much like you said, I'd rather go somewhere else because it wasn't, I'm not saying they weren't managed correctly, but stores around here tend to have issues with management and things of that sort. So there are other factors. So, I know we can do our part with making sure we let people know you've got to shop there in order for them to stay. I think we can do our part in that, but we need to get in front of those people so that we can get them to see our plea and why we need the grocery store.
unless there are any questions, we'll go ahead and move on to our vision and focus areas.
Alright. So, on to slide 18. So after analyzing community input, we crafted a vision statement for the entire plan area as well as for each of the local transit centers, and that was also, also built off of the market study as well. These were published online for public comment earlier this year. We made edits based on the comments that we received. And then the revised statements were also showcased at the March open house events. And the survey responses from that event, the majority indicated that they thought the vision statement accurately reflected what they would want to see in the area. So for the Addison Road Seat Pleasant metro area vision statement, it reads, the vision for the Addison Road Seat Pleasant metro and surrounding area is of a safe, walkable, and bikeable neighborhood with a quality of a mix of housing and amenities, including local shops, healthy food retailers, restaurants, community gathering spaces, public art, and accessible green space. Regionally known for its great diversity of dining and shopping options, Addison Road Seat Pleasant is a popular destination for locals, as well as visitors from the metropolitan area. Addison Road is an inviting street where residents and visitors can walk and bike in safety and comfort between revitalized business district on MD 704, Martin Luther King Jr. Highway to the metro station and destination south to Walker Mill Road. So from that, the next slide shows the draft visuals that the project consultant, that are really representations of that vision statement, the market study, and the community input results. So this shows both the site plan and the bird's eye view of the possibility of what this area could look like, the zoning and land use and policies and strategies that are drafted to help realize this as the vision. And we showed 2 rough draft versions of site plans at the open house events for people to react to. Generally, the survey results revealed a desire to see more density around the metro station. However, there was some general concern of displacement. So this generally shows, 6 to 7 story buildings along Central Avenue in the metro station that step down, as Bill was talking about before, towards the existing neighborhoods, using that missing middle housing as the transition where possible, and using smaller blocks to get compact and walkable form. And the visuals also include projects that are currently in the development pipeline and as approved projects. So from there, we will talk about the next slide, showing Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. And as I said before, we understand that this corridor is of special interest to the city. And so in the plan, this area is designated as a neighborhood retail focus area. So the focus area includes residential, commercial, and institutional properties on either side of the roadway. And vacant lots and underutilized properties present an opportunity to redevelop, with building frontage closer to the roadway to create a pedestrian-friendly environment and ground floor neighborhood serving amenities. Along this revitalized corridor, 3 to 4 story buildings support a variety of ground floor activity, and townhouses can smooth the transition from the 4-story buildings to the existing single-family houses. So the scale of density here would be less when compared to around the metro, as the need to balance trade-offs and would not want competing markets, as the draft plan really focuses on the transit-oriented development around the metro stations. And the consultant is working on a more refined bird's eye view of the potential for this corridor. You can kind of see it in this slide on that right-hand sketch there on the right side of the slide. The draft plan also recommends commercial facade and streetscape improvements, kind of a railroad theme for the corridor branding, as this used to be the right-of-way for the railroad. Active transportation by extending the WB&A trail to the DC line, and complete and green street treatments, on-street parking, mid-block crossings, and bicycle lanes, and then targeted tree planting as well for this area. The next slide shows the Addison Road Brownfield. So we also know that this site is of interest and given its size and proximity to the city buildings. So although there is the contamination, there is a lot of potential for the site. We are not currently proposing rezoning through the SMA or the sectional map amendment. But the plan text, we do recommend a PD zone or a planned development zone to help ensure higher quality design of the development and a community benefit. And in the short term, the plan recommends placemaking, such as public art and landscaping that could help reimagine the site and add some visual interest. And can move on to zoning and land use.
Okay, now we're gonna get into some of the fun, a little more technical aspects of the plan, or more the sectional map amendment component. So this is kind of how we take all the vision and policies and strategies and try to implement them through rezoning various areas and putting in new classifications in order to support that vision. So we're gonna go through kind of a high-level, quick overview of those rezoning changes. I just want to add that all of this is still draft, proposed zoning changes, obviously subject to change from now up until, after the joint public hearing sometime early next year. So the first slide, slide on page 23, that shows the recommending zoning changes for the entire sector plan area. You may not be able to see it from that table there, but the largest reclassification is to the LTO, or local transit oriented edge zone, LTOE zone, within the local transit areas. And this is really in line with the plan's vision to direct higher density development, specifically TOD development, within those local transit centers. And in total, we're proposing at this point to rezone approximately 628 acres of that just over 4,000 acre sector plan area. Now the next slide, next page, 24, that just zooms us in on the at least main portion of the city of Sea Pleasant boundary. So for this remaining of this session, we're going to focus on the properties within that green circle. So that's that area containing the Martin Luther King Jr. Highway focus area that Elena just described, just a couple of properties just south of there. So now on the next page, you'll see those recommended zoning changes for the Martin Luther King Jr. area. Left side is the existing zoning. The right side is the proposed zoning. So for all the zoning changes that we're showing here, this represents about 30.5 acres of new zoning classifications for the Sea Pleasant area. And the most significant changes are along Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. So as you can see on the existing zoning, pretty much everything on that southeastern side of Maryland 704 is currently zoned industrial employment. So it's an industrial land use. We would like to change that over to more of a commercial land use, but we're more specifically proposing to rezone a majority of those properties as shown on the map on the right side of the screen from industrial employment to CN, commercial neighborhood. There are 3 areas where we're proposing to rezone from industrial employment to commercial service in order to accommodate the existing fuel service stations along the highway. And then just on the kind of south side of the highway, adjacent to the Washington DC line, there's that kind of unusual strips of land that are all currently zoned industrial employment as well. And we are proposing residential single-family attached, so townhomes more or less in that area to kind of perhaps bring in a little more density to hopefully support future redevelopment of the corridor there. And it also would help kind of blend more seamlessly in from transitioning into Washington DC. So for there, we're proposing industrial employment to RSFA, residential single-family attached. And then just further kind of southeast are a couple of really more kind of cleanup zoning changes. So we're correcting some split zones, but we are proposing to rezone that small area of IE to RSF 65, as shown on the
That's
proposed
right at the
zoning map.
line.
I'm sorry?
That's at the line here.
Yeah, if you see, it says IE to
Yeah, I see it.
RSF 65.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's kind of a split zone there of IE, so we're proposing to completely rezone all of that to RSF with residential 65, residential single family. And then just adjacent to that, rezoning the area that's zoned RSF 65 to reserved open space, or ROS.
Which is Goodwin Park.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any questions at this point as far as kind of the proposed zoning changes for the,
I have a question.
Mark?
So, because we don't have zoning authority here in the city of Sea Pleasant, has there been any conversations so far with the county about proposed plans for rezoning?
for rezoning, other than internal to planning department, so external conversation as far as county council and so forth.
Mhm.
Nothing as far as what we're proposing at this point, but there have just kind of been general ideas of what some of those individuals would perhaps like to see. As far as narrowing it down to the specifics, that hasn't occurred at this point.
So, Councilmember McCarthy, this is the zone? Should I turn it off? Is that better?
Thank you.
No, you don't have zoning and planning authority, but this is right now is where we're giving you the zoning authority. We're trying to get your input in particular. What specific zoning changes would you like to see? Are we on the right page right now to see the vision happen? And this is like very, very specific. This is like parcel by parcel level zoning change recommendations. So this is why we're coming to you today, to make sure that we're on the same page moving forward. If there's something that you want to see, something else you want to see, we can take that back and look at it and do an analysis and then give you a report on that. But we really want to make sure that, you know, what you see in front of you is getting towards what the ultimate vision of the city is.
Now, is there a chance that if we see this, we like it, because I definitely agree with changing the industrial zones to commercial zones for a number of reasons that I won't share here, but I'm sure you guys are aware. But is there a chance that we could agree to all of these changes and it still not get done? Like, is there a chance? Is there?
So the SMA is a legally binding document.
Okay.
So when we go through and make these recommended changes, if the planning board agrees and the council members agree, it's done. It's legal. It's the changes the zone of the property, and they have to adhere to the rules and regulations of that zone.
Okay.
Yep.
We have to know what it is in order,
Good.
in order to sell it, okay, to a developer, knowing exactly what's here. I mean, and that's why I'm gonna ask you about, I'd like to know specifically what it is, because I'm out here talking to someone, developers, they wanna know exactly what's going on. They're doing their research too. So, okay, so.
Another thing that can be done is once we've been given permission to print and the plan and the SMA have been, published for public consumption leading up to the joint public hearing, that will have everything in there where you can provide testimony to support the zoning changes as well. That will kind of further strengthen your position, or your support for the proposed zoning changes.
Because I'm seeing this as discussion, okay, which means I gotta turn this back in, so I can't, so when am I gonna be able to do what I need to do if I'm turning it back in, I'm having discussion?
If you're talking with some developers,
Right.
send them our way, because we can have that conversation and
Okay.
see what they're thinking about and,
I see.
talk about what we're thinking about, and we can,
Mhm.
have that discussion with them.
Right.
So definitely send them our way.
Yeah, we kind of see this focus area, and the reason why we're primarily rezoning everything to commercial neighborhood is just really what the commercial neighborhood says, is to create, more neighborhood-serving retail, smaller scale, mixed-use development, office and eating, drinking establishments, and support that medium to moderately high-density residential and horizontal mixed use.
Yeah, and it also has very strong design standards for that commercial neighborhood zone. It's a mixed-use zone essentially, where you can do some residential in there as well. But the difference is going to be from that industrial zone to commercial neighborhood is going to be the design standards that they have to adhere to that really gets to the vision of that corridor that we ultimately want to see.
We want to kind of bring back a more traditional Main Street character. And that's kind of one of the key statements within how the zoning ordinance describes that commercial neighborhood classification, so. Okay, if there are no more questions, we can then move into, once we propose the SMA, we will also revise the future land use map. So you can see on slide number 26, this is the existing land use as it is today. Again, this area is largely lower density, single-family housing, as you can see there in the yellow, and everything else is just a bit of a patchwork, kind of all over the place. And those areas within the local transit centers that are highlighted by the dashed black line, they're really not consistent with the plan's vision as they could be. So along with rezoning properties, we're also going to produce a future land use map that we don't have all the fancy transitions on the screen that would kind of show you the progression, but on the next page is the draft future land use map. As you can see, there's more uniformity and consistency throughout. The map was thoroughly cleaned up to ensure that future land use is compatible with each zoning classification throughout the sector plan area. And you'll also see there's much more mixed use, which is the purple color within the local transit centers. And we're also proposed, it's not shown on this map, but we'll be proposing to expand the local transit center boundaries to accommodate that mixed use land use classification as well.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Sure. We are expanding the mixed use land use category. And in order to support that, we're also going to propose to expand the local transit center boundaries just a little bit to accommodate that mixed use land use classification. And it's mostly, right at this point, in order to encompass the future land use proposal for the stadium property. That's where the largest local transit center boundary expansion will take place, is to bring in the stadium property. You're welcome. And just again, these proposed future land uses, they are in line with the plan's vision, as well as the vision and policies set forth in General Plan 2035. Any questions for existing or future land use maps? Or draft future land use map? All right, then we can go ahead and move on to slide 29. We're just going to provide a quick overview of the project's schedule. So as you can see in the red square, that's where we are now. We're drafting the plan as we speak. We're getting close to hopefully coming up with a final draft very soon. And then we anticipate public release of the plan, of the draft plan, or permission to print, either in the fall or of 2024 or early winter 2025. That will then lead us into that period of review where the community can read the plan in SMA and provide any testimony that they would like at the joint public hearing, which we anticipate to occur in winter of 2025. We don't have an exact date yet, but sometime winter, early 2025.
Excuse me, sir, for the purposes of the people, the joint public hearing will be held before whom?
That will be held before the county council, or district council, and planning board.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's the opportunity where anybody who's had a chance to review the plan in SMA can provide written or oral testimony in support of or in opposition to whatever it is, either something in the plan or something in the rezoning piece. They can either speak at the hearing or provide written testimony.
So would the residents be able to attend that?
Yes, sir. Yes, that will be open to totally public hearing process.
And so the document that we're looking at now, that's still in draft form, the public release of that would be towards the end of this year, beginning of next year.
Yes. Right now, I think we're looking at sometime second half of November for permission to print. So we would have the plan out in the public's, for public's view in early 2025.
So everybody who's looking at this and who's asked for a copy tonight, it says on here at the top and the bottom of the page, for discussion purposes only, do not distribute. So for those who did want to look at this, you'll be able to see it at the time that he just mentioned.
Is that before or after the plan go forward?
Oh, that will be much before. Yes, ma'am. And that will be in both, of course, digital format, and we will distribute hard copies at various community centers and the likes. For anybody who doesn't want to have to download a PDF, they can also find hard copies out in the community.
So sorry to interrupt. The permission to print is just a release of the staff's draft of the plan. And so that's just intended to give you, it's going to be a much more comprehensive plan than these few pages. It'll probably be a few hundred pages. They'll get into the nitty gritty, into the details, specific strategies for properties and for each one of those elements of the plan. And we'll give the community several weeks to mull through every bit of that plan, gather your thoughts, write them down. You could submit it in writing, your comments, and they'll be put into the legal record. So anything that you submit, we have to, by law, respond to and make a justification as to whether we agree with what you're saying and why, and keep it in the plan, or if we disagree, we have to have a justification why we disagree with you and why we shouldn't change the plan based off of your testimony. And then at the joint public hearing, you can come and speak as well and before the planning board and district council. And you can do both. They both have the same amount of weight, but it's a legal record that us as staff are required to respond to every single bit of testimony that comes in.
So I understand that everything's in draft mode, planning mode. So what you're saying is there's nothing out there right now that is for public consumption?
No, so
What it is plain?
So what we're doing now is called a feedback loop. We're literally just starting the draft. We're literally just writing stuff down. And so before we go too far in our own internal drafts, we want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So this is literally like if we have like a little pad of paper down and we're writing stuff and getting things out before we get to a more final draft that's been reviewed by even our bosses in-house. So what they're talking about hasn't even been reviewed yet.
So I'm listening to this loop, basically, of information, and I'm trying to figure out the timeline between your proposal and our response as a community. Basically, especially your plan for this area on top of the map of Sea Pleasant, are we gonna have any eminent domain issues for the residents? You know, you're talking about bike lanes and, we definitely need the overpass. If pedestrians can't get across the street, why would we want bicycles coming up the street? I mean, that's fatality waiting to happen, you know? Where do we weigh in on this? I mean, as a resident, I've been here 20 years. I mean, so I definitely would love to see the area grow. I would definitely love to see new development, but we're not looking for a facelift. We're looking for development. I need y'all to be serious about what it is y'all want to do and listen to the residents when you do that, or take our concerns under your belt when you go to fight for us.
Ma'am, thank you for your question. I think it's a very good one. I do, and I think most of us who are looking at the pamphlet are aware that during the spring of 2023 to summer of 2024, there was this section for public participation program and plan preparation. So we had a lot of events over the past year or so where residents were able to come out, they were to write on sticky notes what we want, what we don't want, and that is part of what they have drafted up for us today to present to us.
And I don't have any problems with what they drafted up, but I'm just, like I said, we're moving into changing zones and things like that from residential to commercial and so forth. When I look at the map, we tight, we're a small little city.
Right, so when you mentioned having the residential input, right, that,
Yeah, but that's why we have these hearings, because residents are here to have their input.
no, ma'am, what I'm saying is, when you mentioned having residential input, those are the moments I was speaking about, where,
I'm just saying, is my voice is not welcome here tonight?
no, we're hearing you. No, ma'am, we're hearing you, but I'm giving you reference as to the moments that we've had already that, residents were able to speak their minds. So now this is just a draft that they've brought to us after collecting all of the data that the residents have.
Asking questions to get clarification.
Yeah, just to kind of go back to part of your question originally is there is a lot that's already available to view online that kind of takes all of our
Right, well,
community,
that's what I'm asking.
all of our community input that we've been doing throughout, the council members
And
speaking.
where would I find that information?
We can, it's on our project website, but we can speak after and give you that information. And that
That's all I
contains all of
need.
our different exercises as we've done them throughout the process. All of the input we received and synthesizes and summarizes it all, as well as all types of other resources, the market studies available, all of that. It's all available online, and that's everything that's kind of gone into how we've drafted this plan up to this point. And of course, yes, once it's made public, you'll have, I don't know the exact amount of time, but a month or more to
Well,
review
was my
that and
first
provide.
question. Was any of this out there for public consumption? That was question number one.
And the
If
plan
it
will,
was, I'm willing to go get it.
that's that release of public draft, and that'll be sometime towards the end of this year.
Okay. Well, I would appreciate that information.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So then, we kind of wrap this timeline up, we'll anticipating that joint public hearing, winter of 2025, so sometime early next year, but no exact date at this point. And then after that, again, we'll review all of the testimony, analyze it and so forth, and there'll be a work session that takes place in between all of that and the planning board adoption, which we anticipate in winter to spring of 2025. And then we anticipate council's final approval in summer of 2025, unless there's some type of amendment to that that would require a second joint public hearing, and that would kind of push us out a couple more months. But I think with where we're at and kind of what we're doing now with what's here called closing the loop, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape hopefully get this adopted on the first go in summer of '25.
Okay, and when you get the information that you're gonna have the meetings, because just like she's asking, I don't believe the residents were able to put their input in like we think. You know, because I believe I think Mr. Bilbro was getting confused with the Goodwin Park project. Most of your meetings regarding this was at the Sports and Learning Complex, if I'm correct?
Well, that was kind of our final event, community input event, if you will, was the 2-day open houses. That was the kind of end of the core public participation program, but leading up to that, we held a series of online input meetings and exercises. A lot of the core staff went out to various community meetings and conducted community input meetings in person.
Okay.
Just a whole variety of.
Yeah, she's been here a lot. I would say, well, Goodwin Park is one thing, but I know we've seen her a few times at least.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the residents have seen it,
Exactly.
because that's what I'm saying. Now, I remember kind of, if I'm correct, when all this kind of started, we used to go down to, like I said, Sports and Learning Complex, and this is, if I'm associated with the right thing, this has been going on almost about 16 years. So, again, like she's saying, they never got the information, so they never know where to go to sit in on these discussions.
So that's a very good point, sir. The team has been very involved in the community. They've been to every civic association meeting, every HOA meeting. We're trying to go where we know residents will be engaged with the community. We were at National Night Out. They've had several pop-up meetings at the metro stations. They've been at each of the community centers having open office hours where they've actually worked out of the community centers to engage the residents. We've done things for folks that aren't able to attend in person where they've had online meetings. We're able to vote electronically on different things and also engage with residents. And then just the culminating meeting was the one that was at the Sport and Learning Complex. But prior to that, they've been everywhere, and I actually lost track of how many places they were and couldn't find them in the office half the time because they were out in the community meeting with folks, both at scheduled meetings and unscheduled meetings.
But is there any data taken at these meetings so that we know that they're actual residents and not just stakeholders of the community?
Yes.
Because this area doesn't just cover Seat Pleasant, right? So I think what they're trying to say is the people who actually live here, right? Not just the people who do work in the community and things like that, but the people who actually live in Seat Pleasant. I think that's what, so do we have data to show that it's actual Seat Pleasant residents?
Yes, we actually have, we've synthesized the data from every one of our meetings.
Okay.
And we try to be as transparent as possible. So we summarize those and we make those all available on our webpage. So whenever you see a strategy or policy in a plan that's directly tied to either a data point or input that we've received from the community. So we're not just making recommendations out of the blue and using some recommendation that they had in Detroit. We're responding directly to what our data is saying about this particular plan area in conjunction with what the residents are saying. And we've been very transparent about what we've heard throughout the process. Even at the very beginning, before we initiated the plan, we did a existing conditions report where we did interviews with multiple residents at that time, and that's all synthesized as well. And that was before we even started the project, just to kind of get a sense of the ground floor of where we are right now. So yeah, we've been very transparent about that. I mean, no outreach engagement process is perfect, but they've done, in my opinion, an outstanding job of trying to engage residents as best we could.
Also, I had to, along with all of the English-speaking events and exercises that we did, we also did our best with support of our consultant to engage the Spanish-speaking community as well. So everything that was put out for digitally and in hard copy was in English and Spanish. All of our summaries and input response data sets were all English and Spanish. So, and we had some community meetings as well at the St. Margaret's Church with a large Spanish-speaking group as well. So we also tried to tap into that part part of the community as well.
I just don't want anyone to feel like they're not heard. And I know a lot of times in these processes, it's not until the plan is put in place that people start paying attention. I get that. But like, I want them to still have room to give their input.
Oh, yeah.
And that will happen again too. So this isn't the last time. We're taking input now from what you're saying, and hopefully you can provide us input once you've kind of digested what we've said today or what the team has said today. You can submit something to Bill or Elena with some additional information as we're drafting the plan. And then once we go to permission to print the staff draft, you'll still have at least a month to 6 weeks to look at that staff draft to provide input on the plan as well.
Okay.
What you're hearing, okay, is basically a frustration with reference to the timing. I said it earlier. We've been waiting for a while now for things to take place. We've had a lot of drafted studies. We've been put proposals together, this, that, back, forth, and nothing coming to fruition. We're looking forward, or these citizens are looking forward to some things actually taking place within the community, because then they just get soured on it, they just want to participate, okay, really. So that's where we are now, and that's what you're hearing kind of a little bit from a few citizens and also from our elected body. So we're ready to rock and roll now. Hopefully you are too. Okay, all right.
I think, you know, we're certainly trying to set the stage to make things happen with, you know, of course, through zoning changes in the
Right.
area, as well as providing a great deal of information on the various types of incentive programs and funding and grant sources and so forth. And you'll also see in the plan an implementation matrix that kind of very simply outlines, okay, for this policy and strategy, these are the kind of lead and partner agencies and funding sources and so forth. So you can go straight to that, and it kind of provides you a guide with somewhat of a step-by-step guide on how to make that a specific strategy happen.
And one last comment. Unlike a study, as you know, Mayor, this plan is a legally binding document that when a developer comes in for a development application, they have to legally adhere to what is in the plan, the zoning and the way we want it to look. Also, when it comes to funding, this will be, you know, some ammunition for the council when they're doing their CIP budget, that we're saying these are some priority items that we need here in this community. And we'll outline those specifically, what needs to happen in the plan. And you can use those and say, why are these not in the CIP? Why aren't you elevating these higher to the top? And you can refer back to the plan instead of like, oh, we just wish that this would happen. We'll have specific strategies that you can refer back to that as a community you've all bought into.
Hello, I heard you say that you have data that you collect when you have these seminars. So you have information far as Seat Pleasant residents? Do you have any data to narrow it down, like how many?
The team can provide you with the meetings that we've had in Seat Pleasant and what the summary of those meetings are.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
Absolutely.
curious,
We can do
because it's
that.
not about where you start, it's where you finish. Because I sit back and I listen. I'm more of the sit back council member and just take notes and respond at the end. I hear that you guys come and, you know, you have these seminars. I don't be interested, because at the end of the day, you're gonna do what you want. You know, you're gonna build what you want. I know it's easier to build residential versus commercial. You could put those up all over the place. It's easy. And I keep hearing, you know, we need a food, you know, we need grocery store. And I always ask this question for Seat Pleasant, where it's gonna go? No one can answer that. So that's why I lose, you know, interest, because it's gonna have to go somewhere out of Seat Pleasant. So my concern is Seat Pleasant, you know, bottom line. So with that, when it goes to hearing, you know, what the residents have to say, that's my only concern. Just getting the, it's not about how many seminars y'all had, because like I said, I lose interest. But if I come at the end, my voice need to be heard. It doesn't matter, I don't care when you had a seminar back last year and so forth. That doesn't matter, because people are busy. They catch up when they catch up. So, that's all I have to say.
Anything else?
Well, the schedule review was our, kind of our last main slide, and of course, the final slide is thanking you all for being here, especially on a Monday evening. And I think, I'm glad we kind of tackled some questions and, some of that Q&A throughout. I think that's kind of a better way to have the discussion. But if there are any other questions, glad to take those now, or we can,
I just want contact information, that's all.
absolutely.
Well, my question is, I guess once this is approved,
What's the
what's,
plan is approved?
when will it be implemented?
Well, we anticipate to have it approved by county council in summer of '25. And once it's been approved, then it's, that legally binding document, it's approved through resolution. As far as implemented, this is a 20-year plan, so it's looking at kind of that 20-year vision. But in the actual plan document itself, there are certain aspects to it that we're identifying as short, medium, long-term type of goals. So of course, some things are gonna take longer to implement, like, it's just, for example, like our road diet, that's something that's gonna take much longer than, some mixed-use development, around the metro station.
And the last thing, you just mentioned road diet, and like Mr. Wright said, something about bike lanes and everything. So that means, I guess we as a body are gonna have to start changing some legislation as far as to make that situation accommodating, I guess?
Well, it's more complicated since SHA is involved, especially with the state highways. So there's a lot of discussions and, engineering work that would have to be done in coordination with that agency.
Okay.
Is that who recommended the bike lanes?
Huh?
But I'm always curious where you got areas that have bike lanes, and I don't see a lot of people on a consistent basis, especially in the DMV, where, we have a full winter. Is that who recommended the bike lanes, or did you have a lot of Sea Pleasant residents
A lot
say, hey,
of
we need bike lanes?
the community response that we received was, more bike lanes, specifically dedicated, separated bike lanes. Not what they call sharrows that are right along, and cars are whizzing by. More, separated, protected bike lanes was more what we heard from the community.
Is that it, sir?
That's all we have, unless, but we're glad to
Any other questions?
keep going for 20 more minutes here. Any more questions? Or just wanna chat about the weekend? Or,
That was okay.
Okay, we appreciate you.
and again, thank you all, council members and Mayor Porter. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming in. I need some contact. 'Cause
Yes,
I'm
sir.
gonna be
Yep.
putting some additional contact information.
Okay. Who got a clock? You got a clock?
Miss,
7:38.
unstapled it because I couldn't kind of flip it like that. It was upside down back there.
No, ma'am. state your name for the record. Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Take care. Take care.
And this is just citizens' comment, I as council president gonna ask, can we just make it kind of short and brief instead of a discussion? I'm just asking.
My concern is that we're not updating our citizens. Okay, I go out on the website. It's not updated to the point where I can get this kind of information and not have to come here to get that information. And I think that we would get more participation if they knew what the discussions was gonna be about ahead of time. Okay, and like I said, initially when I moved into Pleasant, I came to every meeting. And I'm sure y'all know my face, for those of y'all that's been around. And, is it on?
So my concern is getting the information out to the community. And then when we have a newsletter and it comes to the house, it's last month's information. It's not ongoing information. Everything's already happened. So how are we supposed to get involved, communicate, and be at these meetings and have input if it's after the fact? So that's my biggest concern at this point, is let's get up on the communication, or let's update our website so that we can pull up See Pleasant and know what's going on. And then we can get more involved. Okay?
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Ma'am, what ward do you live in?
I'm in Ward 1.
See if they have any comments. Anybody else out there?
4.1.
Do we have contact information so she can get a response? I mean, I don't know how much we can.
Well, if, Mr. President, can I?
Yes.
So what I will tell you is there are some changes coming, definitely in regards to the newsletter. We have all been complaining about that for months, so we know. There are some changes coming, hopefully for the better, with that. How did you hear about the meeting tonight?
I got a text message.
Okay, so that is working. Okay, good. Hopefully we can keep that up. And then as far as the website as well, I know it can be a little tricky, but we're gonna try to keep the calendar up to date. If you go on the calendar part of the website, it should have the different things that are going on the calendar part. So we'll try to make sure that that's, but all of that falls under the changes that I'm speaking about. It's one person who kind of does that, and there's been a transition with that. So hopefully,
Now, I don't know if the website works better. I guess it would if I was at my computer. But when I go on my phone and I try to go in and look at documents and catch up, nothing's up to date.
okay. Okay.
Are you able to pull up the agenda on your phone?
Ooh, can you teach her how to do that?
Sure.
But the last time I did my upgrade, I lost my app. And then when I went out there to try to find an app, I couldn't find that either. Do we still have the app?
Oh, yeah. Maybe this is a suggestion. If the new text system is working successfully, maybe we can add more info into the text and provide, and because it seems like everybody's starting to view the text, so we just need to add more communication in the text. everything that you stated, like the upcoming meeting, what is, you know, what's on the agenda, so forth, you know, how we screenshot information, add it all into the, text. It seems like everybody's using their phone more, so provide more information during the text. That should be a great solution.
Are we able to put links in the text them all?
Sure, you should be able, because it,
You should be able to put in a link. I'll have to verify the character count for it. I will say that it's actually working. So we know the last 2 years
yeah,
it's working.
so keep it going.
The only thing that I am concerned about is that there is more information that is like, so for the announcements that we do in our meetings here, those should be on there, right? I noticed, and I kind of, one of the things I noticed this morning. And so like some of the programs that you all have going on, like the beautification thing, that should really should be going out. The yard beautification stuff. And so we just need to come up with a process to better streamline how we're communicating. So I know we have it, but we need we're developing a SOP to say, all right, an event's happening or this is happening, this is when it should go out, this is how much time it should go out. Because it's working, we just got to organize it a little better than what we've been doing.
That's why I asked about the link, because if you can put a link to board docs, they can see everything. They can see what's happening in a meeting, they can see all the events that are coming up, they can see it all.
And I don't think that it's effective to have like one department responsible for it. Like Ms. Ball should have rights to it as well, for the meeting information, things like that. Public engagement should have it. The police department has it for emergency alerts. So I think we have it. We have the account active now. We just need to maximize its use. And so that's definitely on the radar. And then when the new public engagement manager starts, that's one of the tasks I've already talked to her about.
Now, not to get too into the weeds of it, I do think to come off of those points. I do think those are great points. That suggestion was excellent. And I also was going to say that I think that the link info could be placed in. That way we can minimize the character count, but also give them max amount of information. But will that, with increasing the department usage or departments that can use it, will that increase the package that we're going to be using?
Absolutely, but I think that it's well worth the investment. To be honest with you, because we know that just based on the meetings that we've had, the last 2 or 3 meetings we had, that it's working. It's just making sure that the information is streamlined. So even if it's an additional cost, it's something that we can talk about, but it's definitely worth it. Yes. We just need to make sure before we spend the funds associated with it that we have the data to support it. So we know, all right, how many people are using the call them all, text them all, and make sure you all have that. But there's some residents who are not going to have that, and how do we still reach them? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that public engagement has to be tasked with is analyzing the data to see who's actually getting, because we want to make sure that we're not including our seniors, because we have a lot of seniors in some of our wards who are not going to really necessarily have access to that or really are tech savvy. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure, so we want to make sure that we have all forms of communication to reach everybody. Right. And so that's what we're working on. But I know it's working. We just got to clean it up some and kind of streamline it. But it's definitely working, and we'll get better at it.
I just wanted to add that I do suggest that citizens continue to come to the council meetings or to the city hall meetings, whether or not like there are going to be unforeseen situations, right, where communication may lapse. People may not be here. We may not be able to utilize the technology that we have. But one thing's for sure, 2 things for certain: we will have those first and second Monday meetings, save for extenuating circumstances.
You say first and second
Mondays of every month.
Public sessions.
Every
we had a problem before.
Right, no, first and second Mondays of every month, save for the month that we recess, the citizens can come right into the door and sit in on the meetings and hear what's going on. And then we do make announcements at the end of those meetings that let them know, hey, we're going to have something going on this day or that day, what time, the address, and who's going to be running it. So I do suggest for all citizens, whether listening or in person, continue to come to the meetings.
Mr. President and Mayor and Council, I asked Mr. Barber to come tonight So if you all have noticed, just in this building alone, we've had several issues when it comes to the air conditioning units that were placed in here. But we've also, after doing an audit of all of our facilities, recently the building, the EJD, is completely out. And there was a unit over in the police department that went completely out that has to be replaced. We did some research to find out why newer buildings were having shut down. It looks like that the units that were installed in City Hall and EJD were refurbished, older refurbished units who are that looks like they're about almost 20 years old now. And so some of the warranty on the systems were only 1 year. And so we ran into kind of a major dilemma. I know the mayor can kind of contest that even upstairs for the last couple of months, it was pretty hot up there because we were trying to figure out what the issue is with the system. Some of the system still allows us to replace certain parts, but the systems are in need of replacement. Because none of us were here, I just don't know what the logic was to put old systems in the building, or we had to pull different contracts and things like that, and they're refurbished systems. I know that Mr. Barber's been working with our facilities manager to look at how we can go about replacing them. Really, I wanted to have a discussion about it because the systems are going to need to be replaced. I'm asking, say it again. The thermostats are going to have to be replaced in the areas of the building, but I was asking for permission to, we've gotten a couple of bids now, but to use available ARPA funds to make those adjustments. Particularly the priority certainly right now is going to be the EJD building, the police department, which is completely out, that need to be replaced immediately. But I'm concerned that we didn't get 5-year warranties like normally on these systems. I'm not really interested in buying refurbished units. So the available ARPA funds are there, but I wanted to get you all's take on, or if anybody knows, like what happened, why they were purchased the way they were purchased. But I need, that's well above my spending limit.
First of all, that's very concerning. Secondly, what is you said you got a couple hits back for like contracts or whatnot, right? So what is the price that we're talking about for replacement of these conditions?
I asked Mr. Barber to come, if you can come up to the podium and kind of explain it a little better in more detail about it and some of the prices that he received. I know one of the quotes that we uploaded, one of the quotes that we got is the most affordable quote, but I am concerned about the actual units that are being requested because those are not necessarily quality units. And so while the warranty would be on some of them, I don't think that it's probably the best investment for the city. But Mr. Barber can kind of give more detail about the issues that we encountered and what the cost would be.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I've been to work all day. I'm sorry. The cost for just public works alone, it's a 5-ton unit. It's a Daikin. Daikin, they bought Goodman out. It's not really a good brand, and it shows with the 1-year warranty. Most, like if you buy a GE refrigerator, it come with a 5-6 year warranty. I did fact check the years. The facility manager got kind of confused, so they are 2019s, but they're not in good condition. And the ones that's on top. Some of them are 2019s. But the problem where the shortcuts came is like if you look at our thermostats on the side, they're discontinued. So which means that we're having problems getting parts for them. And then some of the thermostats in the building are digital, like in the mayor's office. Some of them is digital and some of them is not digital. So they supposed to communicate like a telephone, and they're not even the same brand. So we having a lot of problems with our dampers and everything talking to each other, which is also making it hard for me to fix the problem. So like me and Chief was talking about stopping the bleeding. Yeah, they 2019s and we could fix them, but on the long run, it's going to be a cash. It's going to keep costing us and costing us. So what I'm thinking for, if we was to replace them units with a way better brand, like I know Mitsubishi make a real good brand, and they would last way longer. And then with what we got in place now with the facility manager, that they'll be clean. We'll make sure that the coils is clean properly. It's kind of like having a car and never doing the maintenance. And then when the unit get real old, now you're trying to bring that unit back. You're gonna end up spending way more money trying to get it back to normal when, you know, some of the things should have been done before. So I'm not sure if they was brand new units. I'm still doing the research on them. But I did double check, and so what happened was when the guy came and he gave us most of the units, you read the first two numbers, right? And it was 2,000. So he said that Daikin and Goodman changed that, and they made it to read the second two numbers. So when we did the research today, it ended up being the 2019. But the unit on Public Works is gone. I had a company come out this Friday. So they came and they just part changing at this point. They tried to charge us for the parts. I didn't pay it. I let them know the unit went out the very next day. I mean, we didn't change everything on the part, and it keep blowing the fuse. And then now they're saying it could be the thermostats. Then they saying it's the dampers. And then, you know, it's just, it's not a good brand. You know, and sometimes the brand do matter. If you buy a brand, you know, that holds their warranty, they're going to give you a 3 to 5 year warranty. Having a 1 year warranty on a bad brand is not a good idea.
I had a couple of questions and concerns. First question is, when you say facility manager, is that for the city of Sea Pleasant or who designed this building?
So when we added that position, he's over top of all our facilities. So that'll be City Hall,
The city.
Police Department, and EJD.
Okay, so the person who designed this building
Yes.
and who placed the previous, you know, the AC units on top, who actually designed it, is he still working with the city on, and he connect still
I'm
here?
not
'Cause
sure.
that's one concern I have.
Yeah,
'Cause if you-
I'm not sure, and I'm not gonna put all the blame on him. I mean, because when you put certain units in, you should have had a service contract also. Meaning, like, anytime you don't have the top and you're not maintaining it like it's supposed to be, and once it go, it's gonna be a lot of trouble bringing it back. So, I mean, the units probably could have worked, but we would have had to stay on top of it. I mean, you got to do the maintenance
Would
as
have
far
to-
as the city, yes.
Maintenance.
The maintenance.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's a
and that
concern.
was the main reason why we added the facility manager position, somebody that got the knowledge of HVAC, plumbing, and heating and air conditioning and everything. So that somebody could be here, and change the filters, clean the coils, and do everything so we can get our money worth.
Sure, you correct
Exactly.
that issue, you know,
But-
moving forward, of course.
Yeah, but when you buy a lower unit and it's not maintenance like it's supposed to, and now that we where we at, and I'm trying to bring it back, it's costing the city. It's gonna cost the city more money trying to bring them old units back than getting a brand new unit.
Concern. So when you say, you never mentioned the number yet, but also, can you tell me the number? Because you never mentioned it yet.
Okay, so
No worries.
so on the low end,
Well, Mr. Barber, so just real quick, before we go over the number though, I think because we're identifying like the maintenance issues with the units, before we even purchase a unit, I would need permission to hire the companies to come in to really do the full service work up first, which is over my spending limit. So we may get to a point where we might not need to replace the unit at all, right? But I need to be able to use the funds to be able just to have them come and do the tracing and things like that. All that needs to be done before even a unit is decided to be replaced or purchased. Because of the ongoing issues in multiple facilities, I think we may end up getting to a point where something has to be replaced, but just to have different contractors coming in to just, for this building, for example, the way it's designed, to have it traced properly, it's over my limit. And so even if we don't say necessary purchase the unit, I want to be able to keep, just make sure the council understands that before we purchase a unit or any unit, we need to have the contractors come in and do the tracing, stuff like that, which is over my limit. We don't know the cost because they have to come in and do an assessment and then tell us, but I know that they are already projecting that it's over that $5,000 mark, just to come in and look, so.
That was leading to my concern. My concern is because when you mention ARPA funds, I would like to see the ARPA funds focus on the residents. You know, we keep spending it on, you know, fixing the city and things like AC units and, you know, paying off loans and so forth. I want to really see the money. I know that you need AC, but of course, is there anywhere else to get the money from outside of the ARPA funds? Because I would like to see it goes to the community.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly could. I mean, we can look at our budget and, depending on what you all think is best, we can, you know, I'll present a budget amendment for other areas in the city budget that we could possibly move around. I was saying ARPA because it's there. It has to be, we have a large sum that has to be, you know, allocated before December 31st. And so that's why I said ARPA, but that's not written in stone. We can look somewhere in other areas in our budget to see where we can either make cuts or make adjustments to meet the need.
Excuse me. I would like to see what company that you deal with or to replace, fix, or whatever. I need that. I want to see a contract with them. What I'm finding out is like, let's say the people that supply the thermostats get to a point and they say, well, it's not us. Not our firm's not a problem. And then you go to the person that has the unit and they say, well, it's not our problem. That's buck passing. That's people passing the buck. And it's still costs us. So I would like to see the company that we hire or want to hire include with their service agreement and what it entails. So we're not just keep spending.
And so what I did is I went to Crop Metcalf. They're a 5-star company.
Yes, they are.
And so I've been in talks with their regional manager. And it's kind of like this is an emergency situation because, you know, with our guys, they need a cooling center. So when they out in the field, it's 100 degrees. They need somewhere to cool off or they can't stay hydrated. And then it also affects our telephones. You know, the electronics can't get but so hot. So if the air conditioning not working properly, the electronics not working, then City Hall can't get no phone calls. You know, so it's really a really emergency situation. But I mean, as far as Crop Metcalf, I mean, like Chief said, they got to come in and they really gonna have to dissect everything. And I mean, just on the price alone, Public Works got one of the smallest units from the 2 buildings. 5 ton to replace that, you talking $22,000. That's to replace the units, cause you gotta take the unit down, the old unit down with a crane. You gotta put another unit up with a crane, and then that's the parts, that's the labor, and that's the technicians and everything as well. So the City Hall has a 7 ton. They got 2 7 tons, which is bigger than the Public Works one. And so with Public Works is 22,000. City Hall got 3 units, so it's gonna be triple that.
Can I speak? We've had excessive heat, so any unit's gonna be boiling, okay, and be running overtime, okay, this particular year. So I anticipate that. If you get done the cost analysis on what it takes, okay, for us to just present that to the council, the body, so they can know exactly what it is, whether or not there's any core arrangement, if after the cost analysis, whether we keep the units or have to get them back in and get something new. Just present to them what the cost aspect is going to be, so we can move forward.
That's the kind of the point of tonight, but like, you know, we're in recess in August and things like that, so I don't have time to come to a public meeting. So I wanted the public meeting to be able to say that this is the issue. Of course, we're gonna I can communicate through email stuff about where we are, or what we found in the issues. I'm hoping that we can get Crop Metcalf to come in and we don't have to replace the units at all, right? I'm hoping that's the long-term goal, but I just want to make sure that I'm not going over my legal requirement for notification or where we need to be. But like, I know that we got some complaints recently about the phones not working in City Hall. Well, we traced that back for the server room being overheated. And so it is a dire emergency when it comes to things like that, because the phones have gone out 3 times now. And we thought it was an issue with Comcast. The reality was an issue with the heating on the 3rd floor and why the systems went out. So it's something like, if you guys say, hey, let's move forward for them just to do their assessment, and when we look at that cost, I'll send it out to you all through email. But I need them to do that assessment as early as tomorrow. Yeah. So the goal is not to go and spend and buy new units, though, because I think that a unit should be lasting just like a house 20 years. And so I'm just really concerned that we keep having issues in these buildings, and these buildings are supposed to be brand new. And it keeps happening, it keeps happening, it keeps happening.
Just a couple questions. One, I don't think you ever finished listing off for the units. So I know you said there was 3 in City Hall, there's 1 in EJD, and then what about Police Department?
So you got 3 units in City Hall, you got 1 in EJD, and the Police Department got 2 units, and plus a extra unit to their trailer.
Okay.
So
and are those 5 pounders, or is 5 ton or 7 ton?
the police ones is smaller because it's trailers, it's not floors, so theirs are way smaller. There's I gave Ms. Ball a price, but it's on the low end, and it came out to $17,000 for the police.
For both of them, or for one?
For one. That's for one.
For one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's 3 of them.
And it's 3 of them.
And it's 3 of them.
Okay. So, my second question is, when we talk about doing the assessment, are we? And of course, I'm just trying to. I don't. This isn't my field of expertise, right? So I'm trying to use an analogy of maybe like a home, right? So is it more of a thing where we go in and we have to just clean out a vent, or, when we say like, okay, we don't have to replace a unit, what else would it be? What other troubleshooting issues would it be? Cleaning out a vent, cleaning out a pipe?
I mean, so right now, for us to even be able to assess it, we got to get everything on the same page. It was some shortcuts taken, like you can tell by the control units in every building, and the way the buildings is made, it runs by dampers. So if you got one unit that say, oh, I want to be 80 degrees, and then you got another unit saying, I want to be 75 degrees, all of them got to communicate together to open and close. Then you got this one big area where it dumps all the excess air in to make sure everybody else's office is normal. Gotcha. But when you got mismatched thermostats, and then who knows what the pots look like under. So like Chief was saying, we got to do a full everything assessment to see what is what, which is going to cost a lot of money. And then another thing I'm worried about is the units itself. Like all of them is made by the same brand, but the brand that we has is the 3rd tier. It's not the 2nd tier. Then you still got the 1st tier. So I mean, of course, if you would have bought the 1st tier, you would have probably got a 5-6 year warranty. Right. You buy the 2nd tier, you would have got a 3-year warranty. You buy the worst tier, you get a 1-year warranty. Yeah. So these are the issues you're dealing with, and then you got to look at every thermostat we have in EJD is they don't even sell it anymore. So to even fix that, you got to change everything anyway. So that's the issues that we dealing with.
Units. What's the? Okay. Do the study.
Yeah, I'm done.
My question is, when you say that you gonna conduct an assessment, that mean will you be having contractors come out, like 3 different contractors to be able to oversee and be able to,
Nah, so when I told the crop at Metcalf, they do everything, so I just want to have one contractor come out. I asked them, they do the service agreement, they do everything. So when they actually coming out soon, and I just want them to go through each and every property and let me know what's going on. It's not going to be a fast fix, but they got to fix, basically they got to try to look at everything to get everything working. So like, it's not as easy as saying, oh, we can change the unit and then it's going to work, because they still got to trace the inside. Then they still got to see if them thermostats is going to even be capable to go into the new units, because they discontinue. So it's not like an easy project. So, that was the purpose for tonight, because it's an emergency. Like, the police department don't have no air, Public Works don't have a cooling system, and we got a lot of electricals systems that need to be cooled off. So
So I would say for procurement purposes, we've talked to multiple companies already.
Okay, I would like to hear that.
So
That's what I'm looking
we've
for.
talked to multiple companies already, but before they can, when you're talking about HVAC work, remember, just to come out, they want their money. And so we've talked to multiple companies, but we have not allowed anyone to do any work because I don't want to spend $8,000 on assessment and another $8,000 on another assessment for another company, another $8,000 another assessment. We went with we've talked to the three companies. Crop Metcalf was the better company because they handle everything. And so we thought that would be the better benefit to the city for them to do the entire workup for the entire city first. But we did talk to multiple companies. We talked to multiple companies because we've had multiple different companies that have worked in the city before. The cost is so high. We don't want three companies doing three different things, and then we've spent over $20,000 just for an assessment. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, because real life world, you always get three estimates. So by, clearing that up and just stating that you did talk, and I trust your judgment, and you came up with that company, so I do understand. The next question I have is, do anybody know how much is in ARPA at the moment?
Last update I got, it was about a little over 400,000.
400,000.
There are some funds that we've already earmarked though, for the Crosswalk project and Ward 2. We're still working on the tree removal or the tree trimming list. So that's going to take a chunk. And then I know there was some other projects we were talking about, but in our September's meeting, any new projects that are being proposed will come to the council for final review and approval. So the old projects I've allowed to go forward that you already approved. It's the newer projects that have to come back and get approval. But we'll have that updated before the December 31st deadline.
Okay. Thank you.
So what's the resolve? What's the resolve? What's the resolve, okay? We've had the discussion now, it's been a long one, to get to the what's the resolve?
Yeah, he's gonna have the company.
what you talking about the solution? Yeah, I mean, I recommend Crop Metcalf. I mean, really what you want is a senior technician. You can go with these cheaper companies, but the problem is they don't have the experience and you're going to deal with more problems.
So in other words, you indicated that in order to bring this particular company in, it's going to be around $8,000 or so. The chief has indicated that it's above his aspect of spending, so he's asking the council, okay, to approve you're being able to get this company in to do the study. So then tell us what you want right now.
What I'm asking is to give us permission to move forward with the company to come in and do the full assessment once the workup is done. But there's going to be a cost. I don't know what that cost is going to be. Once the cost is assessed, I will communicate that through an email to the council, the mayor and council, for the final approval, to let you know where we are and what's next. I know that whatever that cost is going to be over my spending limit. So I just need the permission to move forward.
So I suggest that we give a limit not to exceed now, because going through email, that might go against Open Meetings Act. So I think what we need to do.
Give a cap.
Yeah, give it a cap. Tell them move forward not to exceed 15,000 or something like that. Move forward not to exceed 12,000, something like that. Because if not, we would need to come back and meet again. We can't do that through email.
May I ask a question then? Okay. You did these estimates and so forth. Did you get an actual figure, okay, an idea of what the figure is somewhat? When you
For the
did that?
total project, no. So the figures that I have is
For the
just to
assessment.
change the units. And so I know for the units, I gave y'all the prices. Just for the thermostats alone, for City Hall, you talking $3,000. That's just for the thermostats. So
Okay.
For this particular company that you about to go with, are they requesting an assessment fee? That's where
I
we
mean,
start.
for the technicians to come out, they not gonna come. They not
requesting?
coming out for
Oh.
free. No, I mean they not coming out for free.
Oh,
So
but you
just
don't know the amount. Yeah, you
so
don't know the
so
amount.
for the technicians to come out, it's gonna be $150 and it's gonna be $40 an hour.
That's not bad. No. Yeah.
We're talking about beyond that for them to do the full assessment. So like what they're telling us is, hey, we're gonna come out, it's the $150, but for us to give you the conclusion of anything we find, we don't know.
That amount.
We don't know
Until they
until they're
bring it up.
finished.
You just indicated that it was, they're $150 and $40 an hour.
Yes.
Okay? So if you give a ceiling and so forth, you're gonna have, because you're not gonna know. You're not gonna know how many hours they're gonna have to spend. Okay? So you can give them a ceiling as to the amount, so.
But that's what
what's gonna
Councilman
ask. Okay, so
McCarthy
let's
just
go
said,
with-
give the spending limit of 15 or something.
I agree with that, so that he can make some decisions
'Cause if not,
without
we're gonna have
bringing
to
us
come
back
back.
in here.
I mean, I know you guys like meeting with me, so, I mean, but like, just,
Go get some crabs.
Do I need to make a motion?
yes, ma'am.
So I move that we allow the city manager to get an assessment of the interim city manager to get an assessment of the AC units not to exceed 15,000.
I second.
Any additional questions?
Any questions?
I'm sorry, I just thought about it. Mr. Barber, do you think that 15,000 is sufficient?
Yeah, I mean, to get the assessment done, yes, I think it's efficient, so.
Make it work.
I was saying 10, because it shouldn't go over no 10 to get assessment.
It shouldn't, I was being nice.
You doing online vote or voice? Okay.
Or
Two units on the ceiling, they illegal now. I mean, you got that R22 running through it. If he said 2019, New Merlin law states that all new units gotta have that new AC freon going through it.
Yeah. 'Cause I got somebody
The
coming out
figures you
tomorrow.
gave are really not that expensive. You can get a house unit. for
No,
less than 10 grand.
I was getting
middle of
ready
a
to
vote
do.
now.
Right,
Okay.
thank you.
Did anyone vote so far?
Yes, Councilmember Love, Councilmember Scott,
4.
Councilmember McCarthy, Councilmember Bilbro, Councilmember Wright, Councilmember Rayner.
4.
Okay, measure passes. You guys have 15.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber.
For an assessment.
That don't mean spend all of it.
4.2, discussion. Discussion of the veto of ordinance 0-25-02.
My name is Sheila McConnell. I don't live here, but my mother, Wilhelmina Evans, so I'm here with her, because Hope Love always keep me abreast of the meetings. She calls me on the phone. She texts me. She rolls up a little the letters and stick it in my mother's
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
door or what have you, or tape it on her door, what have you. And I appreciate that because I don't live here, but my mother always want to know what's going on. She's doing fine.
Good.
She's doing
good.
fine.
I haven't seen her in a while.
And
yeah.
also, Porter. One day I saw him and he told me about the meeting. And also, Chief Harris, is he still chief? Whatever you need. You chief. And he always come to Sea Pleasant Rec
he does.
Center, and they keep us abreast of the laws and all that. We have a good time with him. So he keeps me abreast of things here, and I appreciate y'all.
I need to see you after the meeting.
Okay, all right. So I have to go home and try to make, my mother understand what's, not too much. I don't let her know too much, but I'm just letting her know I saw all of y'all. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
4.2. Okay, 4.2 was vetoed. Mr. Madison, to see if there's any other discussions concerning this ordinance.
Well, are we gonna let the mayor say why he vetoed, or?
I gave an explanation in the explanation section. The reason for at this time for my disapproval ordinance O-2502, amendment of the of Chapter 26, I was not allowed to ask the council to clarify the procedures to be taken as to the manner of consecutive warnings in the process, that the suspension should be considered as an unexcused absence, as suspension should be separated from unexcused absences and not commingled. Each infraction should stand on the merit of the infraction and on its own. The removal based on a specific infraction is not jointly commingled. Suspensions for disruptive behavior and being absent are two separate circumstances. While I agree that inappropriate and disruptive behavior of any type should be addressed accordingly, the process by which this elected body does so should at all costs be succinct and be at best possible, leaving no questions. Also, the warning process should follow a progressive disciplinary procedure that should be fair and impartial. Therefore, Section 26-4B, 1, 2, and 3 of Ordinance O-25-02, Amendment of Chapter 26 meetings, should be modified. If you have any questions or need information regarding this matter, please feel free to contact me by email and so forth if you decide to listen to what my explanation was.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor Porter, for that. I read over your veto, and I think I'm just firmly curious on one thing. And anybody can chime in whenever they like on the council, but when you're suspended from work, you're considered absent, correct? And so when you're absent, you are not able to fulfill your duties that you signed on, and were hired for work. So to consider absence and suspension separate things would kind of be, I'm trying to find out the logic in that.
The party is not absent. They're considered, you're going into consideration process because you suspend them, and then that's an absence. They're actually, the party is there.
The party is not there, they're suspended. The party is not present, therefore they are absent.
If the party was present, party was present, then a suspension was issued, okay? The party was present.
Right, so the party was present, they did something.
And they were suspended.
Right.
And that was looked upon as an absence, but they were actually present. The suspension co-mingled with an absence.
Mayor Porter, a current absence, an absence in the present time is not your presence. If you are not, we discussed this a long time ago, right? If you are not able to do the things that you're able to do, that you rose your right hand and signed on for, right? You are absent from your duties. And therefore, whether it's from suspension, sickness, whatever, and it's unexcused, right? Outside of the suspension, if it's unexcused, then you're not present. If you're suspended, then you are also not present. I'm lost on the definition of absence in your mind, my good sir.
Quite frankly, council member, I don't know any other way of explaining that to you right now so that you can maybe get to it, okay? In further detail. If a party is there, okay, and is suspended by virtue of the council president deems that their activity was inappropriate behavior, but they were actually present at the time, okay, then it could, okay, that's it, okay.
Mr.
Hold on, we gotta order, since he's gone. I was next, she's next, and then Ms. Love.
All right, thank you.
Well, he should be handling that.
Well, I
anyway.
should be handling because I'm vice chair, but go ahead, Ms. Love.
It was McCarthy first.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. McCarthy, I didn't mean to
No,
disregard.
Scott is after me,
I'm
and
sorry.
then Ms.
Yes,
Love.
yes.
Okay, so, I voted no, on this piece of legislation, and not because I don't feel we need it. I do feel we need this piece of legislation. It's very important that we, have some decorum when we are up here, when we are meeting on behalf of the residents. They send us here to do a job, and we need to do it, and we need to do it without issue. I did vote no because I don't like the idea of a 3 strikes and you're out, and there's no resident input in regards to the person being gone. We were all, most of us up here were elected into these positions if not appointed into these positions. And I believe that the residents should have some type of say. So there needs to be some type of like public hearing or something. Once you get your 3 strikes, it needs to be like a public hearing. You need to do a petition or something, some type of appeal process to be able to say this. Because who knows, we could get a council president up here who's going rogue and you don't like the way I cough. So now because I'm coughing, I'm disturbing the meeting. Now, we all know we have seen disturbances in here that have been way worse than a cough. But I think that just to protect anybody, right? I think when we make law, it shouldn't just be for current issues, it should be for future issues too. And I think for us to look at it, we need there needs to be some type of way for resident input, whether it be an appeal process with a petition or some type of public hearing. And then I also believe there should be some type of amendment in here. And I don't know if it would go in here or if it would be separate for the council president. If the council president is deemed to be targeting somebody or deemed to be, abusing their powers or whatever. But again, I did not vote no because I don't believe we need this. We need this and we needed it yesterday. However, I think that it could have been written a little bit better. It could have been thought out a little bit better. I don't like the 3-strike process, so.
Go ahead.
And that's exactly my points as well. And that's why I originally stated that it should went through the proper process and start with the committee and let them vet it out. And we wouldn't be here now with these same questions and concerns. And also, when you start from a warning, this is my concern. It's this whole legislation, it's too many holes in it to question. Because you start at a warning. So if someone have an incident one day and they have a warning, okay, what happened to excusing them from the meeting if it, progress? They could have an incident a month ago, and then we have a whole new meeting, nothing occurs, and then the following month, it could be an outburst or so. So you just gonna jump to suspending them instead of, okay, whatever's going on at that session, you have to be excused. So it's like warning, maybe excused from the meeting, you just jumping from a warning to suspension, and it's too many holes to be questioned on how this was, came about, and it's not properly done, so, and I yield.
My understanding for this legislation went through our attorney. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay, so he went through it to deem it fair, and the fact that it is inclusive for every human being. This is not delegated to one person. Everybody sitting up here has to abide by a certain decorum. You all have no idea, some of you don't. The people that watch this complain about how the meeting went. How certain things never got touched on because of the disruption up here. We cannot have that, y'all. We never had that before. I've only been on council since 2017. That was not an issue up on this dais. Not directed to anybody. It's up on this dais to any elected official, including the mayor. Including the mayor. Nobody wants that disruption up here because things don't get done when you have that disruption. We did not at one time have that. My residents contact me and they'll say, Miss Love, what the devil was that went on? Y'all never got to this because there was such a disruption up there. Please, y'all, this is not pinpointed to nobody. It's every elected official, because you took a you swore to be in good, what is the word? Decorum up here. That's one thing that's in your, when you get up there and you swear to be a city council member. So we need correction up here.
Yeah, I agree on that.
You did agree to that?
I do agree.
Oh,
We
okay.
need it. I'm not disagreeing on that.
Okay.
But it goes back to who considered what is being disruptive. So just because you may feel someone being disruptive, but it could be someone else that feel that person wasn't being disruptive. So that's why it needs to be lined out, properly vetted out, and worded correctly for a legislation to be passed, for it wouldn't be no questions down the road.
So if
That's
they
all
say
I'm
you
stating.
disrupted the meeting, or I disrupted the meeting, I did not get permission to speak from the president, there is a decorum already set in place that we don't follow.
And it happens all the time. Because
what
I'm
difference
raising
does
my
that
hand, but people are still talking. I'm constantly raising my hand to speak, but I just hear people just talking out. And
That's
so,
no
I mean,
decorum. That's no
okay,
decorum.
and I say that they're being disruptive, you know? So you gonna, what? You gonna give them a warning, and then what? So if they continue to do it, then what?
You gonna
So
get
they get
another
suspended.
warning. Then you'll go get another
So you said another warning, but it goes to suspension. That's what I'm trying. My point is, it shouldn't go from warning to a suspension.
I don't think it went from warning. to
Yes, it
suspension.
is. That's what
No,
it
did
says,
not.
ma'am.
I think it was
That's
Mr.
what it says.
Excuse me, Mr. Bilbro.
3 strikes.
Mr. Bilbro.
Okay, so first I'd like to just read what's in the statement so that we understand everybody's on the same page. But then I also have a question following. So number one, it says, the first one is a warning from the council president to cease and desist from disrupting or interrupting the meeting procedures. So not just being disruptive, but also interrupting, okay? The second one is after the first warning, the elected official will be suspended from attending the next scheduled meeting of the council by majority vote of the remaining council members. And I want to go back to point 2 after I read the third one. After 3 suspensions, so warning and 3 suspensions, so there's 4 steps. Okay, after 3 suspensions, the elected official shall be removed in accordance with section 310, C310, forfeiture of office. The suspensions will count as an unexcused absence. I'd like to go back to point 2, the latter part of that says that it's by majority vote of the remaining council members. Now, here's the thing. I've only been here for a year. I haven't seen all the things that everybody else on this council has seen. However, what I have witnessed is having to go to special and closed sessions where there are no citizens, there are no stakeholders, it's just us. And we're trying to get through a very important piece of legislation, we're trying to get through a topic, and if there is disruption or interruption, we can't get through it, okay? And I don't think anybody likes to go to work at 8 a.m. and then can't get home till 11 p.m. because they've been in a meeting for 4 or 5 hours, right? So I do believe that when we look at that little blurb that says by majority vote of the remaining council members, it is your colleagues, right, that have to work with you. The citizens, like, again, we have come here and there have been no seats filled, but we still have to be here and we still have to create the legislation that impacts the city. And so if you do not have colleagues who are working together on that one point, whether or not you disagree, you agree that you have to move forward, right? In disagreement or agreement, you agree that you have to move forward. So when your colleagues cannot do their jobs that they signed on for because you don't want to do yours, or you just have a bad day and you've brought it to work, that is something that I do believe we should be able to vote on and say, you know what, we need them gone so that we can move forward. It is not up to the citizens who halfway come to the meetings and halfway don't. They show up, they don't show up. Or when they do show up, they want to talk about something that has nothing to do with what we're actually doing here. But the 7 or 8 people that are up here who spend their evenings, their Monday nights, their Wednesdays, their Thursdays, their weekends, month after month, year after year, right, within a term, who spend that time and devote that time to working, I do believe that they should have the say in being able to at least remove an individual from the next meeting so that if it's disrupted this meeting, they can get it done the next meeting. I think that is fair, I think that is just, and I think that is professional. Now, when it comes to 3 suspensions afterwards, if you have a delegate, if you have any kind of official that you have voted in and they have been disruptive 4 meetings in a row, I think it's prudent to let them go. That is just my opinion. I do think this legislation should pass. I do think that we have enough on our plate as city officials to not have to deal with somebody who is not mature enough to have good decorum, and abide by Robert's Rules of Order, which we all abide by, which we all get a copy of when we first get in, right? And if they cannot abide by that and take the time to sit down and read the rules, just like you would in school, just like you would at work or any other place professional, then I think you need to go. That's my opinion. I yield.
Let me just say that I did not vote for this legislation, largely on the basis of what Councilmember McCarthy was talking about, the lack of due process, I feel, on behalf of the council member or council person or mayor, whoever. They don't have, I feel, proper due process rights in terms of that. I do agree with Ms. Scott that this should have gone through the Government Affairs Committee before it was approached with this body. I get the spirit in terms of, misbehavior, not following decorum, ignoring Robert's Rules of Orders. What I'm really talking about is process. And we've got to go through a process in order to make sure that everybody's rights is respected, and not just the person who's being aggrieved and not those of us who are in the majority, but the rights of the residents who put this person into the position. They should have some sort of input in terms of this process. I yield.
Okay, thank you.
You just had both of your hands pointed. How we supposed to know?
Ms. Scott first.
Okay.
I was basically gonna say exactly what Mr. Wright, it all goes back to the residents put you here. You cannot sit up here and sit and try to get someone out for personal vendettas and so forth. The resident placed them here. I wasn't appointed personally, so I would want my residents to weigh in on this, and that's why it should have go back to Government Affairs and vet it correctly. It's not our job to sit here and try to get rid of someone. It's the residents that placed us here. They have input to whether or not what's going on. It's point blank, period. That's the proper way of doing things.
And I'm so glad you brought up the point of appointment, Councilmember Scott. So, if, let's say, that award in particular has no elected official and someone gets appointed, are they immune from being able to have the citizens vote on whether or not they get appealed and they can stay in? Because just as you all have the power, this body has the power to bring in an elected official. Why is it not fair for this body to also be able to remove an elected official? I believe that if the people did not appoint me, which I was appointed, by the way, for those who are confused, I was appointed last May, and Mr. Wright was appointed, what was that, October, okay? So, this body appointed 2 of your city officials, correct? I do believe that if you have the power to appoint, you also have the power to remove, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, correct? So if we are going to change legislation or amend this to say that someone does not have the power, this body does not have the power to remove an official, they also need to change the legislation to say that this body has no power to appoint an official.
Correct.
I yield.
Again, I will go back to my reason, okay, that I indicated here, which could, if it went in committee or discussion, or if you want to discuss it and so forth, you can do that. If you feel the same way, you can. But I stated my reason. The fact that it was, came back and I didn't understand exactly your reason and sound reasoning, it's clear. It's clear in here, my reasoning behind it. I think I was very specific with reference to it. That's why I couldn't go into any additional detail, okay? I'm just wondering, I'm not saying that folks didn't read it, I'm just wondering, okay, who actually took the time to actually read my explanation, okay, and really thoroughly vetted what the explanation was or asked specific questions as to the explanation, okay? And I think it stands for itself, you know? So that's my additional comment. I vetoed it for those reasons, and now you all can hash it out if you decide something else other than that as you're discussing it. Move forward.
Okay, my comment is, first, there was a question asked, who's deemed to say who's disruptive or not? Like the case of sexual harassment, it's a thing of perception. Second, I kind of had a change of heart because I talked to Councilman McCarthy and felt that there should have been levels of discipline in this ruling. But listening to Councilmember Bilbro reading the legislation, it seems like there is a level of discipline. Thirdly, just like in the Senate or Congress or whatever, there's an impeachment process. And if elected, huh?
I'm agreeing with you.
And if there's a problem when they go to impeach someone, the people aren't doing it. It's Congress that's doing it.
That's right.
So therefore, I'm back with sticking with the vote, my initial vote. You know, again, none of us are in here 12 or under.
That's right.
And we know when we're acting up or when we're cutting up. I'm 63 years old and I'm an honest man. I go to work late every day because I love being in the gym. My supervisor done got to the point, okay, you just gonna be late. But we can't do that all the time. So, again, I'm supporting my initial vote.
I think Ms. Love had one, then I got one.
Because I know that this is not pointing to anybody. It is for the entire DSP.
Right.
And I feel that we must carry ourselves as ladies and gentlemen at all times, not just up here,
Or the
in
technical
the street,
in between.
everywhere, but especially sitting up here. This is what I have sworn to do. And if I go off on anybody or whatever you want to deem as wrong, I think it should stay right here and we settle it. I really do. So I'm not changing my vote on nothing with that.
And just to reiterate,
That's what I'm saying.
He had his hand like this.
I've been had my hand up.
no, it was Love and then myself,
Follow
and
me.
then,
Well, you,
go ahead if you must. I'll yield until you finish.
Mr. Scott,
I was just stating that, basically, you stated that it's not for everyone. I mean, it's for everyone
Yes.
up here, but at the same token, when I first initially heard about this, I was unaware. But everybody else already came together and came up with this legislation in the background. So that's the key, and that's why I say it wasn't properly done. And it doesn't matter whoever says what, but that's how it was done. Y'all said y'all took it to the attorney. Y'all had to have the information already put in place for the attorney to review. So it wasn't discussed properly. It wasn't discussed amongst us. Once again, that's unethical, and it shouldn't have been done like that. And that's what I keep trying to point, but y'all keep just going around it. That's not the proper way. It's so many still questions, and if it was properly done, we could sit down in the committee, whoever's in that committee, and discuss it properly and came up with solutions, and then did the proper resources and take it to the council, and then let the council weigh in on it, and then it can go to the attorney. That should have been the proper steps. And then secondly, it's a difference between being disruptive or disrespectful. Because like you said, we are all adults. I could say something that could assume to be disrespectful to someone, and then they could take it as being disruptive. But they just didn't like, that's their take on it. They felt and how they took it. But to me, I didn't say it in that fashion. So I can't assume if this person takes something that I said disrespectful, and then it goes into being disruptive. So it's a lot. It's too many questions into this, and that's just giving an example.
Well, there's certain terms.
Mr. Bilbrough.
And then McCarthy after me. So for those who are unaware, the city charter, section C310 that's referenced in the legislation, states that the mayor or a council person shall forfeit his or her office if he or she, one, lacks at any time during his or her term of office any qualification for the office prescribed by this charter or by law. Two, violates any express prohibition of this charter. Three, is convicted of a felony or misdemeanor. And four, fails to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings of the council or 3 committee meetings without being excused. I repeat, without being excused by the council or the assigned committee. 5, engages in misconduct in office. Or 6, is removed from office through an impeachment process by first having a trial held by the elected officials or judiciary board comprised of the Governmental Affairs and Technology Committee. So the trial is held by elected officials that is in the city charter. It is not by the citizens, not by the stakeholders, by the elected officials, okay? So there is a trial that is held, and that is comprised of the Governmental Affairs and the Technology Committees, okay? Again, this body, this legislative body has powers. It is defined very clearly, pretty much, within the city charter. One of those powers is to appoint a position, right? This legislation is added to be able to remove a position. And so for, again, every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. At this time, we have no opposite reaction within this charter. We only have an equal reaction. For those confused, we can give power, but we cannot take it away. So this legislation gives us the power, gives this legislative body the power to take away a position as we have the power to give a position. So for those who may believe that there is no due process, this process is clearly defined in the city charter. For those who may believe it is unfair or not define what is considered, eligibility for forfeiture of office, please look at C310, as it is defined that your office can be forfeited if you engage in misconduct in office. This legislation is only defining or giving more information as to what that misconduct is and giving ample time to fix the behavior I'm sure would be mentioned during every single time or before every single time this person is suspended. Again, we do not need spoon feeding, and we do not need to tell a grown person. I'm the youngest person on this council, and no one needs to tell me to stop acting up 5 times before I be removed from my position. I do not have to get sent to the corner 5 times to know I am acting up. And when I am at my job, I do not need to get sent home 5 times for the same action before I know, hey, maybe I'm gonna get fired. We are adults. You brought us in, but we have the power to take someone out if this legislation passes. Because there are gonna be meetings that no one else is in, that we are in, and we need a job. We have a job to do. We have a job we swore to do, and we need to do that job so that we can keep the city running. I yield.
Any other? Sorry, Ms. McCarthy.
So, I guess we can put this, if you don't mind, putting this into committee, and I can give some of my suggestions. I am likely to change my vote if some of my suggestions are implemented, because we do need this. And I know everybody, I don't know about y'all, but I've been on this dais where people have stood up against me, physically stood up and yelled at me we need this legislation. I know we need this legislation. However, it needs to be done right. And now, thank you for your viewpoint, Councilmember Bilbro. I do appreciate, I appreciate that. If we have the power to bring someone in, it does make sense that we should have the power to take them out as well. So I get that part. But I do think that we can work on it a little bit more. And I'm not in the Government Affairs Committee, but I'm willing to give, you know, my revisions to the committee. And then we can go from there. If Council President is agreeable to putting it into committee, I'm sure you are, because you don't want it to die. I'm sure you don't want it to die. So if we could put it into committee so that we can end this robust conversation that we're having now.
I'm in agreement with the rest of the council in agreement.
All right,
Okay.
Okay?
I agree with that.
All right.
So, council, for the record, in order to overturn the veto, you have until August 28th. So I will contact Councilmember Higgs in the morning to find out when she's available to meet. You would need 5 votes to overturn it.
Thank you.
Now, do we have to come back to meet to overturn it, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Come back in September.
After that.
You gotta be before that.
It has to be before, she literally just said it has to be before the 28th.
Well,
We can take an hour
wait a
by
minute.
time to do
You're gonna
this. I
take it
think that's
before
fair.
3 people. That's 3 people on that committee, right? So if we decide and agree to meet during August, that's okay, isn't it? All right.
But the council has to then overturn the veto.
Ms. Higgs, I am, and I forget who the third person is.
That's why I
That's
didn't
the
go to the
overtake.
committee. Coincidence.
Okay.
We're gonna go to it now.
That's what it should have been.
Yep, but we're going to it now.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so next one, 5.1. So do we need to discuss that? We just did that, right?
We just did that.
Okay. No unfinished business?
Wait a minute, legislation, yeah, that's right, okay. There you go. No,
Oh, yeah,
no,
you
no.
can go ahead and read, you can read it.
For legislation?
You want me to read it?
Announcement 7.1, Ward 3 Beautiful Front Yard Competition Best Yard Award from May 1st to October 1st, 2024. 7.2, Ward 4 Beautiful Front Yard Competition Best Yard Award from June 1st to October 1st, 2024. 7.3, Mayor's Community Cookout, Saturday, August 10th, 2024, Goodwin Park, 311 68th Place, Seat Pleasant, Maryland, 20743 from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. 7.4, early voting begins on Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, Friday through Friday, August 30th, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then Saturday, August 31st, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then Sunday, September 1st, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Seat Pleasant City Hall, 6301 Addison Road, Seat Pleasant, Maryland. 7.5, regular work session, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, Seat Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, 6301 Addison Road. At 6 p.m., hybrid and by Zoom video. Meeting link details will be on the city's website. 7.6, public session, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024, at the City Hall and Council Chambers, 6301 Addison Road. It will be hybrid and by Zoom webinar at 8 p.m. Is that accurate? Okay. 8 p.m. Meeting link details are available on the city's website. 7.7, the 2024 municipal election, Monday, September 9th, 2024, at the Seat Pleasant Activity Center, 5720 Addison Road, Seat Pleasant, Maryland, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7.8, special session, Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, Seat Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, at 6 p.m. And then lastly, 7.9, Ward 4 Community Yard Sale, Saturday, September 14th, 2024, from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. The rain date is Saturday, September 21st, 2024. You must obtain a permit by email at codeenforcement@seatpleasantmd.gov.
Yeah, making the motion to go into close. Oh, I got during this one. No. Yeah. Go into closed session.
Why we going into a closed session?
Sent out,
Responded in an email to no. You didn't want to do the closed session, but your colleagues agreed to do the closed session.
I wasn't, that's another miscommunication. It didn't send any email reference to that it was agreed upon about a closed session.
Okay, it's in this email, it's in this, agenda, but duly noted.
In the agenda. I looked at the agenda, I didn't see anything about it. Wow. This is crazy.
Anybody like to make a motion to go into close?
So moved. Second.
All right.
Where is it on the agenda about a closed session? Under
Agenda 8.1.
We got the information.
Hey,
Thank you all.
Sheila.
Yeah,
Four.
This none but BS.
Come here, Sheila.
Ms. McCarthy said for.
What is this closed session for?
And Mr. Bilbro said for.
What is it for? I have a question. What is it for?
I vote for.
It's right there to discuss employment, assignment, promotion.
Oh, I got you.
Because what I received the email for, if we're discussing that, it needs to be in an open session
You know
period.
where I am. I'm having it.
That's what I received the email on,
Food and
salaries.
stuff. You make sure you
So
bring them up
I'm
again
not
and start
discussing in no closed session about a salary.
Fish, then you come to my fish.
So it's not salary, it's
She
to
wanted to know what
discuss
the
the
closed session was
employment
for.
agreement.
Okay. That's an explanation right there.
I'm not doing that. No.
1 to 4.
What employment? For what?
Barbara's going somewhere.
Y'all keep wasting my
Going
time.
here to my house.
This is
Yes,
crazy.
sir.
It's
Yes, sir.
8:55.
Hall of Fame, somebody from Fairmont Heights.
Then y'all didn't
What
even
time?
communicate.
Can you go?
What'd she say?
Yes, ma'am.
This is
1
crazy.
to-
Y'all
Thank you.
keep doing y'all,
1 to
whatever y'all
6.
wanna do, and it's
1 to
crazy.
6.
It's very disrespectful that y'all
She
keep
ain't gonna wanna miss
manipulating
my
this.
event.
I know, but,
Tell her Mary Grant gonna be there. She ain't gonna wanna miss that. I'm just letting you know.
I know, but Mary's
Y'all
coming to
sit and
pick her
keep
up.
agreeing
I'm
to
going to invite
anything.
Mary Barber.
Well, she not, my mother's not at her house now. She's somewhere else. We trying to get her in a assistant, yeah. She wants to go. She wants to go.
Y'all
It's a
think
nice
it's funny.
one.
That's
You
not, it's
heard
not
of,
funny.
Where's it at?
Wait a minute, Victoria, man, on in Temple Hills.
You sure she wants to go?
Yeah, she got
I know
several
how to-
people that, at my
She got
church.
some friends going.
Yes, and
That's
she
what
wants
it
to go,
is.
that she'll be more comfortable.
Definitely
She needs
seats
to
need
be
to be
with
lower.
her,
Y'all
you know,
just do anything.
her age.
Puppets.
You know, that, and everything. But she wants to go, she don't wanna live up there no more.
Crazy.
But the thing about it, we had a hard
Forcing
time getting
somebody
around
here.
because the air conditioner went out.
Is it still out?
Yeah, it's still out.
Was no
She
email
might
sent.
be able to get that fixed with.
No, but she said she don't wanna come back. Hey, she don't wanna come back. We had a hard time getting her out.
Don't forget to get her ballot, so make sure she feels.
Oh, no, I got that. I'm gonna get ready to take it
Well,
out.
that ain't the one.
I have
It's
a
another
family.
one coming to her.
Okay, you don't have to worry about that.
I don't care about that. I don't care about some money.
You don't have to worry about that.
She's
She's
trying to
gonna-
keep
she's
beating
gonna
the system.
do that
thank you.
before we, because we don't know,
Crazy.
they haven't, we just filled out the paper, so.
Well,
we
I'm
don't
getting
know.
ready to call Mary Barber, because I'm gonna say, if you can cut that short and get to my house sometime
I don't, yours is what time?
from 1 to 4,
And that's
right
what I
in my
just-
yard.
Yeah, but that's,
Sad individual.
well, the only way, oh, I don't know how we gonna do that. I don't know how we gonna do that. Cause I supposed to take her to Mary Barber's house and they supposed to go, it's in, Martin Crosswind. That's.
You know, I know where that's at.
Yeah, that's where it's gonna be.
She gonna wanna sit there in those 5 hours. You tell her, come by.
But the